of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, can we say anything?
You can come stand over here in the corner next to me.
You could be down there, you could be somewhere else.
Could be next to you.
Strange places. Okay, we have the agenda before us. I think we have an amended agenda that was provided for us. Any changes from the amended agenda? Leave it on our desk this morning.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Jerry.
I'll second.
Second by Rick to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have minutes from the November 30th meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I think there's one addition on there, I think you were at that one meeting too, weren't you there?
At the bid letting?
The bid letting?
Yeah.
Your name is not on that.
Oh, it was just
So I get credit, I was there.
I don't have none.
All right.
Okay.
Bruce is going to another meeting. Other changes? Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda, minutes as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moore, second by Rick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Do we have comments from visitors this morning that aren't on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move right on into our first item. Peggy, you can tell us what the transfer of lost veterans funds to the general fund is.
In order to pay the $5,000 to the daycare center, there was the agreement that the board had decided they were gonna do. We can't pay it directly out of community betterment. That's only a fund that we have to transfer money to somewhere else. So we're transferring the money to general basic, and then in turn we can turn around and pay the $5,000 out.
Sure.
You know, we promised this money to them, 6 months ago. They said, don't give it to us yet. Now they have a bank account and they're ready to roll, so they need our funds.
And this will show up on the claim list for the 14th, next Monday.
Okay.
They entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to
Transfer.
approve that transfer.
Motion by Bruce,
I'll second.
second by Rick. All those in favor of transferring $5,000 from the lost fund to general basic, in the amount of $5,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, we have change order number 1, Humboldt Construction.
And Rick, you can probably explain this, but if you want this packet, I can hand it to you.
Yeah.
I did notice that they put me in as the signing, we usually had Rick.
Oh, they put you in?
But
I wonder why they
that's
done
why I put an
that.
authorized person to sign. I can change the names on there over to Rick's.
Oh, they've all been in my name before.
Yeah, and for some reason this time it came in, it has mine in there.
Maybe I made them mad.
They don't want you to approve one.
Evidently.
So it wouldn't be, wouldn't take too much to change the names around.
Mhm.
They're out of wall the other day, Rick, that's probably the problem.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Okay. This change is the ramp work being done. Get my glasses off, I can see it a little better. And where they cut the new ramp into the jail, been kinda fighting over that amount that they wanted to charge for that, and I think they kinda come to an agreement on that.
Was that the 12th, was that the big addition charge? Or what was it, how much did it come down? Gotta find it.
15? Is that what it was? It said 15,370.
Well, that's what they want now, right? Were you,
This here, part of this here is, 15,370 for the change. And I believe the electrician is gonna do his work on a time and material basis.
okay.
Due to the fact that when he tear into something old like that, he doesn't know what he's gonna find.
Well, it had to be made, I went
Yeah.
and looked at it, I seen what they did, and I mean, you didn't have much option, you don't have anywhere else to go to get the ramp in there.
Yeah. And I think it'd actually be a good change compared to what was originally designed.
Yeah, there was room enough to make it work, so. All right, I'll make a motion to approve change order number 4 to Woodruff Construction for the LEC remodeling project.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve change order number 4 for $15,370, as indicated. Other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
There are 3 different change orders you'll need to sign, Rick, I'll just go in and I'll change that.
Okay.
think we're moving along pretty fast, but I see no reason we can't take emergency manager right now, if you want, emergency manager, economic development director.
Yeah.
That's,
I thought you got a new title.
You have a double job this morning, Alyssa. And she's got your backup help with you, though.
Yeah.
I do, moral support.
Bodyguard.
Are you ready for it?
You bet.
I have your,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Had one left, right?
You betcha. Okay. So as we've done in previous years, for those of you that may remember, we do a biannual report every 2 years, and we did that last year. So this off year tends to typically be an update for just this current calendar year that we're in. So you do have packets in front of you. This year was a little bit unique because we did have a strategic planning session this year. So what you'll find in front of you is our strategic plan report. I did provide that to you as a marked up version so that you can see what we're working on, what the board has decided would be a strategic priority for us for the next 5 years. I do want to point out that we will continue to implement, organize, and lead all of the projects and programs that we have done for the past 6 years, in addition to some of the new projects that you'll see on the strategic plan report. So really quickly, just to go through some of those new ones that I'm sure you'll hear a lot about. The objective 2 is to identify a need and lead a community daycare initiative project. So in your packet, you will also find the mission statement of Kitty Cat's Child Care and Learning Center. That project is in full swing, and I'm sure as you've heard, we've got a pretty solid plan in place for that, and that is under the leadership of Humboldt County Development. As we continue to look through that, Objective 4, a business recognition program and related events, that would be a new program for us. Assist with efforts to investigate the need for a community wellness center. That would be a new project for us. A marketing plan aimed at recruiting new industry. We do that every few years, and we will be in line to do that with the strategic plan as well. And identify ways to attract new talent to Humboldt County. That's a new project for us. Of course, we have a workforce crisis, so that has come up on our radar and will be something that we focus on quite heavily in the next 5 years. And then what else you'll find in your packet that I wanted to draw attention to would be the development of Phase 2 of the Humboldt Business Park. That's the folded sheet that you have. This is the stage that we're in, so you have all of the information that we have. At this point, it's our recommendation that we would bid option 2 with option 1 as an alternate. So that would be, and if you look at that, I probably should mention, you can kind of see a little tiny 8. That would be lot 8. So if you look at the plat of the Humboldt Business Park, we would open up 4 or 6 lots with this development. So do want to make sure that I make you aware that is, we are working to continue to develop that park, and that will be something that we take on in 2016. As we continue through, a couple more new initiatives for us would be a leadership program. Not a program that we have now, but something that we'll look to implement in the next 5 years for the strategic plan, in addition to a college internship program. So, quick, brief overview of the strategic plan. I wanted to make sure that you guys had a copy. You do have a representative that sits on the Humboldt County Development Board as a representative of the supervisors. So, certainly if you have any questions or comments on that report, it is a fluid document, but we have very aggressively worked to achieve those goals. I also want to mention the completion date. If you go through that and look at that, you'll see that most of those projects are in progress, completed. We've got a few that we haven't started, but we're only in year 1. So we do take this plan very seriously. It does guide our programs and initiatives for the duration of the plan. So I encourage you to take some time and look through that. We do take those very seriously. In addition to all of those programs, initiatives, and activities that are outlined in our strategic plan, and in addition to the ones that we are currently doing, we do have one active business recruitment project on file, one active business expansion project. And then what you saw in your packet is a hotel development project. So that is an invitation for all of you. I will send that to you electronically as well, but we encourage you to be part of that event, to investigate and identify and have conversations about hotel development in Humboldt County. So, the last thing I would like to draw your attention to is our formal request letter. As you'll see, in 2015 alone, and just a reminder, we only discussed projects that we had a direct role in. So those that didn't use the services of Humboldt County Development, we don't use those statistics in our data. So, in 2015 alone, we created 15 new jobs, $3 million in additional capital investment, and $2.5 million in additional taxable valuation, as we continue to lead the initiatives that I just mentioned. Humboldt County Development is requesting the same amount that we've requested for the past 6 years, $40,000 in annual support. We would appreciate, and do really appreciate, your continued financial support. You guys have been a great partner for us. We certainly do appreciate that. The only other thing I want to draw your attention to in the packet is our annual operating budget. To be honest, it doesn't change much. Our funding levels have stayed relatively flat for the last 6 years, so that's just kind of a snapshot of our funding sources and how we plan to allocate that funding. So, last year, I did, as part of our biannual report, I did provide organizational statistics for you. So in the last 6 years, what has our impact to Humboldt County looked like? And when I updated that with the 2015 numbers, we've created more than $20 million in capital investment, 152 new jobs, 374 retained jobs, and $12 million in additional taxable valuation in the 6 years that we've been charting those statistics. So, it's been a good year for us. I say that every year. Every year has been a good year for us. We've been busy. We sure have enough projects on our plate, so it's been good for us. But I would entertain any questions that you guys may have.
The goodness part, the reason for that, you ran out of space on the old one, right?
That's right. Baumgart's bought lots 1, 2, and 3, and lot 4 has our commercial spec building on it, so that's correct. We do not have any more lots out there that have hard surface road to them. The infrastructure is there, we just don't have a hard surface road, so that's correct.
And the airport park only has 2 lots remaining that are available, so kind of running out of room.
Right? It's a good problem.
Are those very big lots out there?
2.5.
So it's a little harder to find them right now.
Yeah.
So Alyssa, when new developments come to town and looking for locations and communities, and we know what some of the things they're looking for, but what do you think is probably one of the things they find that's hardest to meet their needs? Is childcare one of those main ones?
Yeah,
If it is, how big of an issue is it?
That's been a real struggle for us, largely because when you're not from here and you're recruiting an industry that has employees that aren't from here, the logical question is, where can I take my child? So where can I go to school? What's the healthcare system? So all of those essential services, we call them, and childcare is an essential service. So that is a significant issue for us, because they want at least a safe haven, right? So here's a community daycare center that we have, and as you start to learn more about the community, perhaps you can meet people, and an in-home may, they're very different services. But without knowing people, that seems to be the hardest thing, is in-home childcare is difficult when you're not from the community and you don't know. So that's been one of our biggest hurdles that we haven't had an answer for. So as we look at when we recruit an industry, we do it knowing what the workforce is like and can we handle that workforce. So that's something that we can, yeah.
And I think what goes along with that is, workforce is we have a shortage of workforce in Iowa and the Midwest, but, if you look at the unemployment rate for Humboldt County, I think it's below 3%. So, we don't have adequate daycare. A lot of private daycares are, have closed this past year. Your existing daycare providers are being called 5-6 times a day to see if they have room. So if your daycare provider, your private daycare provider is sick or their child's sick, and it's already tight to find childcare, a lot of employees are staying home. And so for their own child. So they, you know, it's hard to find backups, it's hard to find a primary one in the first place. Now they're trying to find a backup and where it's already short. So we've been working on this for the last 2 years, and I think we have a great plan now, moving forward. And, you know, we did a daycare tour, childcare tour, about a year ago, and, you know, went to Bancroft, went to Eagle Grove, went to Gilmore City, and you look at all the communities around us, they all have childcare centers. You know, they're always staffed, they're always open.
So it is a big thing for
It's a
every
big thing,
community.
you know, and, you know, what I hear, is, you know, looking at Gilmore City, you know, there's probably 25 kids that people are driving 22 miles a day to drop their kids at Gilmore City.
Come back here to work.
Right now, they have 99 kids, and they have a waiting list.
99.
They have 99 kids
Wow.
at Gilmore City, and with a waiting list, and we, you know, we're struggling here, just, so the daycare is very, very important for this community, and to me, it's no different than any other amenity of a community, and it helps our workforce issues.
So previously, we've handled it on a case-by-case basis. So, there were a couple people that were recruited in from Precision that had daycare issues. They just called me personally. So it's in the community's best interest, it's in the organization's best interest,
Okay.
to provide a long-term solution.
So Jim, do you feel we're meeting our housing needs fairly? Because what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is I think if unemployment's that low in Humboldt County, which I believe it is, and it's harder to, you know, get the wives into jobs because of the daycare you're saying, but also I think if people are fully employed, to expand the industry, we need to get people outside the area, which we want.
Right.
So you have to have all these things that you said, and we've worked on housing quite well.
And
But I think you're saying to get these jobs for people, they're gonna need daycare, because these families moving in aren't gonna have grandparents living here, they're not
Right.
gonna probably have connections,
And you talk to some of the major employers, you talk to the hospital, you talk to the school system, and, you know, they struggle. And when they bring in new teachers, they bring in new doctors, and, you know, they're constantly being asked, do we have adequate daycare? That's one of the first things that they ask.
So I would think as our community pulling together for this project, because this is gonna be a big project, a
It's gonna be a
big
big
dollar project,
Yep.
I would hope that all the industries in the community would help support it financially, along with other, you know, community, in, you know, the city and the county. But I think it's gotta be a joint effort to make this work, and
Absolutely.
I think that's key. And how you approach the fundraising will be key on this, I think.
How many kids will that daycare be able to take care of?
We would
Sorry,
not
no.
construct a daycare that would not cash flow. So, rest assured that we would make sure that we did the financial analysis prior to. Roughly, 5,500 square feet can service roughly 70 children. And I think that's where we would look to be, just from that cash flow standpoint. So, you know, until we sit down with the architects and look at room design and shape and how many square feet do we want, I'm not sure that we would do much less than that, because I think from a sustainability standpoint, that would be a number that we'd want to target.
See, in our mind, that's what's gonna be key, what you can show us, it's, you know, building is one thing, but cash flow, operating is gonna be really crucial.
Mhm.
And that's where we're gonna wanna see good numbers. I think everybody's gonna wanna see those numbers. And the people that are gonna utilize, they have to realize that they have to put something into it, because you can't have it for nothing, but I think you're gonna have a state-of-the-art daycare that's gonna have a lot of amenities.
Yeah, and you know, the thing that we are focusing on, so all of us that are on that board, right, are doing it for the community. I mean, no one of us individually are benefiting from the daycare center. As you'll see in there, it really is a learning center. And in partnering with the school, how can we make sure that we're teaching children at a young age, even at infancy, some of those benchmarks that they have to meet as they get into the school system. So, a really unique approach. I think that...
The one thing I think you're able to do on a larger scale with something like that is offer educational opportunities, offer more than just a place for a child to play and then sleep and go home. Because I don't think, in today's world, the kids, you know, I have a 18-year-old, and she's got two older sisters, and I just spent the weekend with her, and she's talking the words that the other two never did, but it's because the older sisters have instilled that in her. So I think every parent wants more advancement on
Absolutely.
early childhood development. I think it's just unreal what a young kid can learn and absorb early on.
And
So that's what would help make a better community also.
Absolutely. and we have partnered with a curriculum director, she's on our board.
See,
so
that's
she'll
something you can offer on a
make sure,
larger
yep.
scale, where
Mhm.
it's harder to do in-home on that
Yep,
type of thing.
exactly, so.
Okay,
Kind of tied to that, Rick and I went to
Yeah.
a meeting up in Charles City, 18 counties, 22 counties, and they gave around a report. Every county, almost without exception, said they lack workers, lack in...
Yeah, workforce is one of their,
You gotta have...
and affordable housing.
Attract those people, or they're gonna go where they have their
That's right.
needs.
That's right,
We're
we
in
are,
competition with the whole, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, they're concerned about losing businesses because they don't have the workforce.
Right, we are definitely in a competition state with other counties, without a doubt.
So we have to get attractive.
That's absolutely right, and to do that, we need to have great school system, great healthcare, great amenities, housing. I mean, we have to, I think, if we look at our portfolio when we're recruiting, we have solutions or answers to all of those except childcare. That's the only
so
one
that
that,
should be our number one thing.
yeah, in our last, we just haven't had an answer
Because what
for.
we see, you know, with other counties that have economic development directors that are good like you, you're self-competing, you're competing so much to give bonuses or enticements or,
Mhm.
tax breaks. Everybody can do that, so you've gotta have the next best thing.
You do, you have to have the whole package, because every
You're-
community,
Carl,
every...
you're saying you're hearing it all over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh,
Everybody- So it
absolutely.
isn't,
Yeah,
it's like it's a
part of
humble problem.
Mid-Iowa Growth Partnership, we have a couple of initiatives, housing and workforce, so we have committees that focus in on those, two things. We share best practices and case studies, and actually Humboldt rises to the top, the housing development that has happened here, and how, the housing corp has, bought land, developed it, auctioned them off, continuously looked for ways to build housing in Humboldt. It has become a model for the region.
And Dakota City's built in there now, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just...
Yep.
John, we talked a lot about economic development. You've been involved with the locker rebuilding in Rutland. You don't just work in Humboldt City.
That's correct.
You work the whole county wherever you get a request.
That's correct, yes, we are a countywide organization. Part of the city's in-kind support is my office space, so that's why logistically, I'm located in that building, but you're absolutely correct. We worked with, a restaurant, in, Rutland. We've done a lot of projects outside of Humboldt proper, and, our objective as a board is to increase the taxable valuation, because that helps all of the communities, it helps the county. When the taxable valuation is higher than it was 6 years ago, your cut is higher, the city, all the cities' cut, so that, the school's cut is higher. So we really use taxable valuation as a measurement, because that impacts everyone regardless of where the project is. So, as I mentioned, we have more than 12 million in additional taxable valuation.
Bob Lynch has got a question you'd like to ask.
Hi, Bob Lynch. I am from Gilmore City,
Mhm.
and I just don't want to do this because it's going to hurt Gilmore City. But if they have a great daycare, what they found out is the fact that the kids come to daycare at an early age, they will probably stay there and go to school because the parents don't want to run back and forth. So they'll stay there longer, at least till the 5th grade or whenever they move on to the system and come back to Humboldt or whatever.
Right.
So I guess what I would want to know is, have you talked to the school system and see if their long-term plan is to make a new elementary somewhere and take the elementary that's sitting right down here in downtown Humboldt and use that for your existing daycare? You have a structure already, you have heat there, all you have to do is move into something like that if Humboldt High School or Humboldt system had a new plan for an elementary.
Sure. So that's a great question. In the facility plan for the school right now, I'm sure you know that that's always up for conversation. The addition to Taft would not happen for roughly 3 to 5 years. So our existing plan is to add on to Nice, just because, as you mentioned, the transition. So that's sort of the early childhood area.
But what I'm also saying though is if you take the money that you're gonna put into the addition at Nice and say, school, can we help you make a new elementary somewhere else? Take that money, make a brand new elementary,
Sure.
and you take over the existing Taft building as your daycare.
Sure.
And use it that direction.
Bonding is gonna be the only issue there. They've already bonded for the middle school, and so,
The
bonding
middle
is
school's
passed.
already up there and running.
Correct, but they're still repaying those bonds.
But if the community understood this with your development, what I'm thinking is that they understood that by doing this, you'll keep more people in town and
Sure.
have more kids in your school system.
Sure.
It might be better to do something like that than it would be to add on to a MEAS and, you know, I don't know what your dollar number is for your element, for your existing, but I know using existing buildings sure makes it work better for cash flow.
Yeah, it sure does. We'd have to do some retrofitting, but I'm not sure the school's in a position to construct a new elementary school
Have you
at
asked?
this point. We have,
Okay,
yep.
then that's the question I'm
Yep, we have.
asking.
One other comment, that Cory made up to, Charles City that day, is your internship program with the high
Yeah.
school students. A lot of the concern was up there was trying to keep their kids in the
Mhm.
community, and I think that's a great program to get them out there to experience what work is like in Humboldt.
And we've been doing, you have numbers in your letter, but I should have mentioned, we're on our third full year of that program. So, if you look at it, we service, quite a number of kids through that program. It is a good program for us.
Cut you short, I thought there was about 30, and I see there's 45.
Yeah. We had a really big year this year.
We heard everybody just trying to get that thing started.
Yeah.
We didn't.
They were talking about it, and I told them that they were already doing it, we've been doing it for years.
Yeah, yep, nope, that's a good program for us. It is, as I mentioned, we'll continue to do those programs. We do, in fact, have some kids that are working in Humboldt County now,
That have
specifically in the
stayed.
trades,
Oh, good.
that have stayed. So we've got 2, an auto mechanic and a welder. So, yeah, that's been a great project for us. It's fun to see those kids come back and stay, and, you know, I think it's helped us with the business
Yeah.
conversations as well, so.
Well, to cut you off, but we gotta go to drainage pretty quick.
That's okay.
As board president and representing our board, we greatly appreciate the support from the county. I get around in north central Iowa, and, you know, Humboldt County Development is one of the best development organizations that I'm associated with. So I think we have a great director, we have a great organization, we have a great board, and we really appreciate your support.
And not only that, we have an active,
Yep,
it's
very
an
active.
group, and that's what you wanna see.
We have to put that budget request in, or budget planning, but I see no reason we couldn't answer your request.
Yeah, thank you.
On that in January. Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, I see it's 9:00, and on our agenda, we have a drainage proposal, so I entertain a motion to go into drainage.
So moved.
Motion approved.
So,
Second by Mort, all those in favor of going to drainage, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We now are in drainage. We get to change horses.
Rick?
yeah. I didn't make it, so
Butter
you're
to
safe.
put on the train with?
I didn't bring any, I probably should
How
have.
many times we get out of that? It says, "I can't bring butter," and I said, "No."
Just put them in the microwave, a little butter, a little...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Then you need chili, too.
Well,
oh, chili, yeah, you know, I've never had that before.
Sweet folks. All right, this must be that.
We haven't given Morty time
I'm
yet
sure that's
either
that
for...
exploratory out there.
That's what I'm gonna guess what.
You going to the Rose Bowl, Mort?
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Are you headed to the Rose Bowl?
Here comes the drainage.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, it was a fun game.
It was.
It was a fun game to watch, I just didn't like the ending.
It's almost like the Green Bay Packers the other day.
Oh, geez.
I went to bed, didn't you
Okay.
Okay, we are now in drainage, and we have a proposal before us, DD2 voluntary annexation hearing. Rick, I'll let you take over.
Okay, I'm gonna give you, I don't know if you've had copies of this report previously or not. Very short report, it's just a few acres that have asked to be annexed in. We're currently in a district, but it's more natural for them to take the water this way. It's near the lower end of DD2 ditch. Gary Jensen is working with the landowner. The second sheet I'm giving you is gonna be the proposed route of the tile they wanna put in. It's very natural to take it that way. It's insignificant amount of land as far as two is concerned.
Thank you.
You couldn't measure the effect on the ditch. It'd be so little.
Less than 58.
Yeah. So, but like I say, it makes sense for them to take it that way. So our recommendation was to go ahead and, proceed with the annexation, approve the annexation, and, then they'd be helping to pay for any future work. We'd not recommend they pay for any back work, because you're basically coming into the district now, they weren't getting benefit before. Without the tile that he's drawn, little or no benefit previously. So,
And is this area's not in a district at...
well, I think it is.
I thought it overlapped, it was in two districts.
Yes.
So are they staying in the other one also?
Yes.
So it'll show an overlap on the two
Yes,
districts.
yep, and you've got that all over the place.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right or wrong, it's everywhere, situation. So,
Do we have any comments, anybody concerning this proposed annexation? It's about 50 acres, a little less than 50 acres.
You can pay in two districts.
Yes.
You have to.
yeah. Now, they could appeal the other district and ask for a reclassification so it gets reduced, but that, I don't look for that,
Amount of
it's such a
acres,
small
I would
acre.
think that
I
would
can't
be
believe it's worth our
justified.
time,
Yeah.
so.
Other discussion on the proposed annexation?
I'll make a motion to accept the voluntary annexation.
Motion by Rick,
Second.
second by Bruce to accept the voluntary annexation hearing. We had the hearing on, as proposed, section 29, Forest Township. Other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. All right. DD2, lateral one, discussion regarding reclassification report.
Okay, now, this is a pre-informal meeting. Because you have not actually scheduled the informal or the formal. I have copies of the adjustments as made, I'm gonna go over those briefly with you, so you know where I'm coming from on these. And I'll make these available to everybody here. And what Trish and I talked about previously was, getting them over to Gilmore for distribution also.
We have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we have copies?
No, I ran extra copies this morning, because these are
Copies
just...
that he gave us, or is that different?
This is the new one, he hasn't given us the old one.
Yeah, I've got that here too. Okay, here's basic changes that have occurred. In reviewing the residential and commercial properties, the residential in particular, the average points per acre came out higher with the adjustments we'd made for impervious than we have been using typically. We've typically been in the 20 to 45 points an acre for residential, and they were coming out, some of them in the 50 and 60 points per acre. So what it took to get those back in the range was that we took everything that's residential or commercial times .42, so a major reduction. And then, I experimented with that a little bit on what kind of factor to use to get it within the acceptable range, and that's what I ended up at. That I wasn't fortunate enough to just start at that
And
number.
that range is back at the 20?
20 to 45.
20 to 45?
Yes. So that gets that back in the acceptable range. Now, the bad part of it is that makes the ag ground go up. I checked 2 or 3 of these, they're still at or a little over our expected average cost per acre on the residential, or the ag, but I also looked at, the outlet charge for 92. Part of this is being paid for in Gilmore City by an outlet charge on DD 92 for dumping into DD 2. So I looked at that, and what it would take for an outlet charge to have the residential in that area also in that kind of range. So I did a reduction in the outlet charge basically from 39,400 to 23,400. And then that got the residential in those areas in more acceptable range also.
You say that again, and where's that on your tax bill?
It's included in the numbers. There's a line item for an outlet charge of DD 92
Okay.
in there. I'm not sure exactly where, I think it's, I don't know if it's over D's, but...
Found it.
Okay.
Okay, so you went from what to what?
I went from 39,412 to 23,432. 39,412 to 23,432. And I'll go through all these. This is good to get some of them out today, and then you can decide how long to allow for your informal meeting, and I can get copies over to Gilmore, to City Hall for people to pick up, so that it can be in everybody's hands a while before the informal. And then, that will give us a chance to go over them again and see if there's anything else that needs attention. There's a lateral L near the lower end of this one. The tile starts out from the ditch and goes west-northwest. You don't go too far and there's a lateral that comes off called lateral L. I looked at that one, we made some adjustments in that area. There were a few of those that came out low because they were just paying on the main, so we did some adjustments in that area. I've got a worksheet of what sections we did and how much adjustment. And we also, looked at each parcel where there was ag drainage wells, and, on most of those, we made some adjustment up. Not a lot, but the commissioners and I felt that they were getting a major benefit. Now, if you call it a major benefit, we maybe didn't increase it enough, but we did an increase on the properties that had ag drainage wells in them. So that was another one. There were several parcels that we felt were maybe a little on the high side, looking around to the properties around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was just 5 properties, I guess, from my list. And we tried to look at areas, like if a person owned a bunch of land, we kind of looked at it and the areas around it and try and see if those look fair. Knowing that it can vary, 140 to the 40 next to it can vary significantly, just for how the soils are, nothing else. Keep in mind also, we cannot take into account the tiling that's done. If someone pattern tiles it, everybody has the right to pattern tile and hook into this main. Whether they do it or not is up to them, so we can't take that into account.
Like a public highway, there, we want to use it.
You're right, exactly. Yeah, it's like a city street assessment job. If a woman that, say an elderly woman that doesn't drive, doesn't have a car, she still pays a street assessment because it's there to use, so. That's it in a nutshell. I think it's gonna take some time for people to digest this a little bit, look at their costs, compare it to the neighbors. Like I say, and the biggest negative on this is the ag ground went up significantly in order for the other to be in the range.
But it's got so many acres that really don't impact it that much.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, this was a 3/4 half-inch coefficient grant project, which helped drastically. I mean, you'd be looking at 700 or 800 an acre average without it. And the ag's gonna be in the 200 to 400 range probably. Landowners with significant amount of land, it's many thousands of dollars increase in ag ground. It's just the way it's working out.
So you are going to get this information to Gilmore?
Yes.
Distribute it most of it.
Yeah, and we maybe could just even make more copies today, and I can drop it off on my way back through or something. or we can get them a copy, a loose copy, and they can make them or whatever. I'll talk that over with Trish, how to handle that.
Do we have comments this morning? Anybody present like Robert?
Oh, yes, Robert Lynch, part of the district. DD 92 outlet. That basically leaves town out of the southwest part of south and goes out west, out of town, goes along the blacktop and then goes back down. Why was that lowered like 13,000 or whatever it was you told the comment? 15,000.
I compared the costs like for similar properties in 92 to ones in Gilmore that were not in 92, and I thought those should be similar, so.
But 92 also has farm ground involved, too?
Some. There shouldn't be much. The majority of it should be residential or commercial as far as levy.
So when you say similar on that, Rick, you mean use a similar rate?
Yes, like
whatever the dollars are.
Like a bare lot in this area compared to a bare lot in this area.
Very similar.
Similar, yeah. What would it take to get those charges similar?
So most of those properties in town, their evaluation is dropping in half, basically, from what they were in the first valuation of it.
Yes.
And the cost that you said per acre is going up somewhere between $50 and $75 an acre on most of the ground out there.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, Bob's right. I mean, that's
what you found.
To get this the way the points should be and how it's worked out historically, that's the end result.
But how come the first time it didn't work out that way?
The factor we applied for impervious area had too much effect.
But that's what you used in the past, though, right?
Yes, but we still made sure that it came out in the point range.
And why did you even present that to the board the first time then? You know,
Because-
that's my question.
Well-
If you thought it was off then, you didn't think it was off when you presented the first time, it was the second time, now you've got questions, now you've...
I think we made corrections, Bob. I don't think we need to talk about what it was before.
Yeah, we do. We need to talk about what it was to begin with.
Let Rick try to explain it.
Yeah, it's probably my doing as much as anything, because, in looking through the rates before the hearing, I thought we were okay. But I didn't look at the point range and compare it to what our typically acceptable range is. I wish I had. We could have delayed and reapplied it, and we wouldn't have had to shift this the way we have now.
So let's go back to when we did the, school project up here, in
Mhm.
Did you go through these same procedures and meet these range
Yes,
criteria?
yes. The school was hit extra hard, because of all the runoff coming off of it.
Correct.
But after that, yeah, we tried to be in the point range.
So you were following the point range then?
Yes.
That would relate to what you're doing here?
Yes, and that's what I give my technicians a summary of the point range I want to be in. And I believe in this one was they started in that point range, but then the adjustment factors for impervious were too significant, and up the point range. So it was
Based on the types of soils and this.
Yes, yes.
And also, we gotta take into consideration the value of property in these small towns. You know, if this is in a bigger city, you can go with different point ranges where the value of
Yes.
property does increase. They have ways of making money off their property, you know. In the small towns, the chances of that property being more valuable doesn't go up as much as it
No,
does in some of the large
it's-
communities where they use this point range.
I've lived in some very small towns, and yeah, I mean, I bought a decent house for $11,000 in a small town, years and years ago. I mean, yeah, and it wasn't gonna go up much. Some of these, I believe, the assessment was as much or more than the property value if it was an empty lot, yeah.
That's showing empty lots.
And you don't take the value of the property into account directly. For example, if a rundown house with the house and garage sits right next to a perfect condition, much newer house, same impervious area, you can't assign more benefit to one of those than the other. I mean...
But they would be equal, probably.
They'd be equal if they had the same roof area, same garage area.
Right.
Yeah, they would essentially be equal, yeah. So, you think about value a little bit in the, just like Rick was explaining, yeah, how much value, do you really double the worth of a lot because you've done this project? No. But you still can charge them significantly. It's just because of the benefit for drainage, so,
So the total reduction to residential properties in Gilmore is roughly 50-some%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Let's get the information out there, let's talk about dates. I think you're gonna do a complete new notice, is that right, Trish, right?
Informal, yes.
Yeah. And informal, right? So, yeah.
Are we gonna have another informal, or we're gonna have a formal?
Well, it's up to you guys. Informal gets a lot of questions answered, but you could go right to formal. Get all this information out.
Should we have another informal?
I'm not the expert on this one. I don't know.
I think
You're gonna have questions all over the place. You had an informal one for the one east of town. You had issues with that one. I happened to be sitting on that one, helping adjust that. You started with one, I helped adjust it, you readjusted it, you didn't like that, so you went back to the original.
Right.
So that was because of people out there talking. So this one here may have to be the same way. I don't know.
We were advised years ago, when you get rural and urban involved, we're always gonna have conflict. I don't care how well you do it, somebody's not gonna be happy. We've told that by years ago.
Yeah.
Keep them separate if you can.
Mhm.
We're just looking for conflict when we put them together.
Yes,
We have
oh,
to-
yeah. Oh,
Two
absolutely.
boxes getting bored is what it amounts to.
Yeah, yeah.
So what happens in 10, 20 years, you have to redo that main? Means you didn't follow the old main up, you went totally different. So that old main is 100 years old. So in 10, 20 years, you gotta replace it, and the owner cities and that, they're gonna have to pay again, just...
Yes, that's why theirs was reduced a lot. I mean, they didn't pay anything into lateral I. We split out the costs for that first piece of main, and then all of lateral I. Those were split, and that's why you see two listings on here. You see one for the main, and you see one for lateral I. So the people on the old two main didn't pay any of the lateral I costs. And they paid a portion of the main cost just from the ditch up to where lateral I takes off. So the people that are on the old main, they aren't paying very much this time, compared to everybody else.
So, I'm on the old main, is that, I'm not paying as much now?
If you're strictly on the old main and not in lateral I watershed, yeah, you're paying significantly less than the people in the lateral I, because they're paying for a new main right through their property. So,
So you're telling me when you first went through my property, you didn't hook into the old main, so I wouldn't have had to pay anything then? You just went across the corner of my property, and now I'm paying $20,000-$30,000?
the project that was put in was taking pressure off of that old one. Now, it did the most good when that extra cross connection was made. That should provide that old main a lot of relief. Someday it's gonna have to be reworked probably, but that's why...
But it's also taking pressure off, and that's why they're paying less also.
Yes, yes.
But why was it you didn't follow the old main?
Well, decisions early on, looking at route, how to pick up the ag wells. The ag well locations probably had as much to do with it as anything. It was just engineering evaluation at the beginning on which route to go.
But they didn't take into consideration that old main's gonna have to be replaced possibly
No.
20 years?
No, they took that into account.
Well, the
in
goal of the funding is to close the ag.
There, that's exactly what I was gonna get
That's the
to.
real answer.
Yeah,
So they're looking to close ag wells, not
yeah,
to redo old drainage districts, I mean, the benefit is you were able to help alleviate some of the old main by running water through the new, it's gonna help the length of the old main, it isn't gonna make
Hopefully,
it
the
perfect.
length of
No.
the life of the old main.
Right, it's gonna take some of the added water pressure off.
yes, yes,
And with Mike, you know, he had a say in the direction they were gonna go. 'cause he
That's
put
right.
75,000, or 75% of the
And
money.
we had
into it.
discussions with him early on route.
Yeah, sometimes it works out to follow the old main, but in a lot of cases, it's not going to.
Yeah, most of the time, we do follow the old main, because that's where the ag wells are.
That 75% money was allocated for ag wells.
Right.
Right.
Right, so,
Well, that old main is gonna give loose. Doesn't matter if there's relief pressure now in 10 or 20, that's not gonna have any bearing on one.
Well, all of these old mains,
Oh,
that they would be in
yeah.
the same situation across the county.
if you don't touch them, don't disturb them in any way, we might get quite a few more years,
We're
but
fixing suck holes all the time.
all the time.
All over the county.
Yeah.
For that same reason.
Well, you get, like you say, you
100
get
years
them,
old.
get them 100 years old or older, yeah, you're right, Gary, and we've tried to allow for that in how we split out the costs, because I have a worksheet that shows what percentage of everything lateral I pays for, what percentage of everything main of two pays for, and I had by far the biggest cost, because that's where most of the improvement was done, so, the people
You
do...
got something?
One other question. Down at the very beginning, we had the main going in before we hit Gary's, we took a small tile and went north to close a couple drainage wells up there. That's all considered part of the main project. Did you break that out? Because there's a couple wells that got taken off on that, and they weren't getting charged very much per acre on that bottom clump down there.
We increased it for the ag well, but we did not break it out separate as I don't believe, wait, we do
That
have.
means that the rest of the district and lateral I helps pay for that spur coming up there to close those couple drainage wells, that they're not, those people then aren't in turn helping run the rest of it clear up for Gilmore to close those either. What I'm talking about is you started there in Cougar Ranch or
Yeah.
Cougar Farm,
Yep.
right there,
Yep.
Little Graves Farm. You put a tile from there heading to the north and east, up across the field, up across Weimers, up to Lawrence Davis's farm. That tile is all considered part of the main assessment. I don't think that's right. I think those farmers should have to pay a little bit more like we have to pay. We're paying $250 to $300 an acre, and that was before this cost. I don't know what it is now, because I haven't had time to look, but
Yeah.
I think there's an assessment there that needs to be made more for that tile project on that spur than just paying the main cost.
We could look at those,
Well, it makes sense, because, you know, I
Yeah.
think you need to look at it.
yeah,
I'm getting most of what Bob's saying, but you know,
Yeah.
the point is, when that was first designed, that was to close a certain amount of ag wells, and we allowed that addition to be in there. I don't think you should allow it at a reduced cost if it's closing an actual ag well up there.
Well, there was two wells that got closed.
Yeah, you're right.
on that level, on that
I think
spur.
we need-
And that
I mean, I
spur
think
is
that's something.
I'll look at that with the
And that spur is
commissioners.
included in the main cost. And
Which
so
it should be.
Which it should be.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then they should also help to pay part of my cost for my spur by my place then.
Because even though that's a spur, it's almost becoming part of the main line, because it's doing the same thing close ag wells.
Closing two ag wells.
It's really just a private spur that goes up just for those farmers.
But it also closes those ag wells.
Two wells,
Mhm.
that's right.
So even though that's a private spur, you would wanna consider what the relief of that ag well closure was.
What I'll do is get together with commissioners and look at the one down close to the outlet, how we adjusted it, and then, because they were getting by fairly easy too. Bob brought that to our attention earlier on.
That was the nearest one to the outlet.
Yeah.
So you readjusted that one.
Yes.
So it would only make sense
Yeah.
on these other two.
We'll look at that. I mean, it's not gonna have a big effect on others, but
No,
it
but it's
will
only-
But I think
put on that.
everybody should have their fair share of paying
Yeah.
for this thing, you know?
Yeah.
If we're gonna take it away from the city and throw it out on the farmers, then every farmer out there should have their fair of doing it.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that's like Gary, for instance, has going through, he had no choice, okay? I
Right.
don't necessarily think he has to pay
Right.
more than what he's assessed, but I think those north of that main up in there that got a private tile replacing.
Yeah, I understand.
As much as I am.
I understand the reasoning.
Well, especially in
And-
that case where you've not only closed two ag wells, you've also provided almost,
Yeah.
he's saying, calling it a private tile, basically because it goes that direction, and
And-
nobody else is probably gonna hook onto that spur.
And
That
we
has
know-
quite a bit of value
There's
down the
only
road.
two owners.
We have a breakdown of that for future maintenance. I think it's, is it L2 and L3 or something we've
On
labeled
that
them?
spur.
On that spur. So we know the acres involved. It'd be real easy to look at it and compare.
But that spur also cost the district $39,000 too, in crop damages, or 30-something.
Oh, yeah,
crop
yeah,
damages.
Because they never got picked up.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
look into that.
I think there should be some assessment there.
That's, yeah.
No, not that, this should be looked at.
Yeah, we'll look at that, that's a
That's a
good
good
point.
catch.
It is a good point, we'll definitely look at it.
And see, that's
But
the
you told
problem.
me that last time I talked to you, Rick, so I'm a little disappointed you didn't do it this time.
That particular lateral?
Yeah.
You missed
Well, let me look at the points, because,
Points don't mean squat in this instance. They need to be
Well-
assessed, period, you know?
Well,
The points
points
didn't mean
mean-
anything in Gilmore either, you adjusted those accordingly.
points mean assessment, so,
I know what they mean.
well, you said the points don't matter, so I just was,
But you're not-
You can
are
do
you-
whatever you want with those numbers and put the figures and points however you want on that thing to make it work right.
yeah, with commissioner's blessing, we
That's
can
right.
adjust, yeah.
Right.
Let us look at it, I mean,
Well, it needs to-
hopefully at this
and-
week, we can just take a look and,
You know, to
yeah,
clarify a point, it's another one of those deals where, and we tried to work with Mike on this, and it was an afterthought, and he came to us and asked what we thought we could do, and we gave him the blessing to go ahead and add it in. But the point is, when you make changes, there's always a chance of conflict or misunderstanding.
Oh, yes.
That's what this is arising, just like
Yes.
working with cities and tying them together with
Mhm.
ag. It's always gonna be an issue that's gotta be gray areaed out. But the point being is, you know, he was wanting to close those for the ag well closure project as a whole. It was the best thing to do. But
Yes.
in fairness, it needs to be looked at just like anything
yep,
else.
and we will
Part of the reason there's
definitely do that,
a mix-up is because it was added later. It wasn't
yeah,
part of the main closure to begin with.
true, that's true.
Might have routed it a little differently if it had been included.
When it was originally petitioned, this was part of it, those two.
They were in the count, they were in the
Count of
count,
nine.
there's probably discussion on how to cover it. Well, we didn't miss them, I don't
In the
think we
original
missed
plan,
them,
did we
I
have those in
don't
there?
think so, I think we
I'm thinking of
did.
another project where we did
I'll bet you
that.
are, 'cause I'm quite sure we had them in there.
We have done that before, though, added them
Yes,
at the end.
yes.
This
It
is
throws
added,
it
these
off.
are in there.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes wells show up that weren't on the list or whatever, I mean, that happens too,
Well,
so,
since Bob's talked to you about it and it didn't
Yeah.
get overlooked, let's go ahead and get her done.
yeah,
Relook at it.
yeah.
Continue this at a future date, then another hearing before we have any action?
Well, I think you could set an informal time, I'll look at it with the commissioners and make revisions, and then we'll get copies to Gilmore. I would surely can get together with the commissioners this week, look at adjustments.
So if we do another informal, we maybe better do it over at Gilmore. You think, or right here's fine? All right, do it right here then. I don't know how many will show up.
Yeah, I don't have a
They're
feeling.
reduced by half. Would you be
Yeah.
happy if you were reduced by half?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be upset.
So
They
Rick,
shouldn't
I
be
got one
upset.
more question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for 20 years, they have put that new tile in where the old main is. Are the people in, where all this new went into and added district, they're gonna help pay for it?
No. We reduced the area that drains into the old main above where we did the main work sufficiently that their total cost in the end for equivalent drainage will probably end up about like, it did in this one. That was the intent, was that we reduced all of them in the main drainage area where the old main is significantly enough that with a future project, it still wouldn't be real expensive project. They wouldn't be paying more than the rest of the people. Now, there's not egg wells
Well, if
there
you
to close.
replace the rest of that, yeah, there won't be the funding match, you're saying.
Right. DD 92 would still contribute, because they drain into it.
So
They'd have
if-
another
if you
outlet charge.
replace the part of the old main in the future, that's still gonna utilize part of the new main as far as
Yes,
discharge. So
yes.
they're just gonna pay their additional pay
For
at
the
that time. or
Part of Maine
cost.
down at the lower end, yes. That's what...
So there
they're paying
was
for.
some cost to utilize the new, because they're eventually gonna be utilizing it.
Yes, correct.
But not the full amount.
Right, correct. There, that's a good statement right there, so.
But there were people that aren't in the new district or doing drainage, that are in the old drainage, that had to pay mitigation because they had mitigated farm ground out there, and now they supposedly have a better access to tile also. Because the farm right there, a mile south of me, had to pay mitigation on 10 acres out there, just about.
Did they have to pay the full amount, or did they get 75% adjustment?
Well, 75%,
Good
yes,
morning,
but
I didn't mitigate it in the-
Half of 25%.
Okay, that's right, half of that.
plumbing
Plumbing,
done today.
so they-
and
there was a
just said
step-
that the water will be shut off for about an hour to 2 hours. So please be aware when you go to the bathroom, when you need any water for coffee or anything, get it now. Bye.
So my point was, like Gary was saying, they already are being assessed part of the main part of this tile, plus any mitigations that they would have had for wetlands on their property. Yes, it's at a 75% cost share, that's right. But if the new main, if the new tile starts in Gary's field and comes and follows the old one up, they'll be assessed that value, is what you're saying.
Correct.
And nobody else will be assessed that value.
Correct.
So where I live now, I'm hooked to the new main, so my farmers won't be assessed to that other tile put in new south of me, then if that was the case.
That's right.
Can you put that in writing?
I knew that was coming.
Bob,
I do.
would anybody?
It's like after we separate, when we reclassify, we separate off branches, so that if work is done on the branch, just the people on the branch pay. You're on branch now, yeah.
And that DD 92 actually includes about 40 acres or 30 acres of farm ground right across the Gilmore, south of the railroad track, the whole one farm.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, it does include part of that farm ground. On the map that I have given, you have given out,
Okay.
it shows that.
Just for, are you done with that?
Yes, we're done.
Okay, just for a point for the future, you know, of course, we're running out of ag wells, so we don't have that many left, but
Thank goodness.
I guess the question might have been for the farmers or us to ask is, you know, at that time, if the route was what, Mike was looking for, Idell's was looking for, and it is, we wanted something different, I guess that would have been the time to say, ask somebody to sign a petition if they wanted to redo the old main now and include that. I mean, there would have been some cost savings, there wouldn't have been all of it, but,
Because,
you know, you could have
yeah,
maybe improved that at the same time you would have had, but then that complicates the, you know, how you assess everybody too.
yeah, Mike really looks hard at how,
I know that's what Mike's biggest
Yeah.
concern was, they wanted the most inexpensive route for them.
to catch all the
I
ag
don't know
wells.
why we didn't get on that then, and...
I mean, we could have possibly, but that's what we should have done.
I didn't pay attention, I just...
We all should have worked on that if that's something that needed to be done, but,
Well, it can be part of the discussion early,
yeah.
route and why. I mean,
And
it's,
that's how you learn as you go through this
Yeah.
process.
No, we did learn from that, 'cause out here in 6, we've had them all in here, and we've just discussed different routes.
yes,
And
oh, yeah,
changes before.
yeah, the informal meetings ahead of time.
About on the third time. of
Yeah.
Making changes.
Mhm.
What do you want to schedule another?
Of course, every time we talk about it, the price is
I don't
higher.
think we allow, Rick.
Well, I'll get with commissioners this week, and then, we don't have anything for a couple of weeks, do we? But I can sure be down and work on things.
Trish, what would work best for you?
Yeah, 'cause she's gotta do the notice.
First is
You got 3 days.
annexation, classification, and engineering report.
21st, what's that, so this? Do it 3 days after Christmas? 28th?
I'm gonna be out of town, sorry.
Here's the time to do it.
Well, yeah.
You do the 21st? You do, don't you? Let's go with 21st. I'll make a motion, we set the date.
For the informal.
Yeah, for the informal on December 21st at, you want a half hour for this one?
We got one at
What is
9,
more
one
than
at
that?
9:15, one at
10.
10:30. Then I'll stay on drainage, be a good morning to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may be here at Christmas time.
Could be.
Okay, we have a motion to set the informal hearing for 10:30 on December 21st. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Rick. Other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll have a hearing right here in this room, 21st of December.
Now, do you want Trish to send out notice for informal and formal? Because,
I would say both.
yeah. What do you, what's Trish's feeling on that, I guess?
Makes sense, wouldn't it? What do you
If
want?
we're sure that the 21st will be our last informal.
Oh,
Oh.
I see what you're saying.
Oh, so wait.
If we have questions,
Yeah.
then we wasted all that
Yeah.
Let's wait and set it on that date.
It's fine with me, yeah.
We'll set it that day.
Way to wreck
Then
that.
everybody that's here will know.
Way to wreck that, Tricia, that was a good idea.
I know, but I didn't wanna...
You're thinking.
Didn't wanna have to
Yeah.
do your job a second time, or the
Yeah.
third time.
You've never had to do that before, have you?
Never had.
Never.
Okay, we all understand what's happening here on this, here.
Mhm.
Let's move along to, pay estimate number 7 for DD 125.
I didn't bring copies of those, When, 125, that's when you pay both for installation and materials. We've got brought pay estimates for each. They're getting very close to done. I don't know if you have a particular order you want to cover these in, but, okay. But Cretex, they're supplying all the materials for this, and the total material supplied so far is $807,881, and the last month, the materials supplied,
What was that number again?
807,881. So that much in materials alone has been paid for.
Okay.
Now, well, that's the total materials after this one. This pay estimate by itself is $13,778.80. We're recommending approval of this. We keep track of how much pipe is out there. We have a little discrepancy with Cretex. We do this every time where some of the pipe's rejected and taken back, but it's still on their list. What it boils down to in the end is we're not paying for any more pipe than went in the ground, and we're not gonna pay for any rejected pipe. If the contractor breaks a pipe, he has to pay for it. Otherwise, the Cretex has to absorb any repairs or hauling back.
So, get it clear, what is the problem that when they're rejected and they go back, they're rebuilding this a second time, or what's the problem?
They are...
We're going through this all the time.
I know, every time we separate out the materials, it creates some work for us because...
Right, somebody's gotta be accountable on it.
Exactly, we hold Cretex accountable by not paying for more than goes in the ground.
You settle up the very last...
Even if it's been billed twice, they're billed extra, is what you're saying.
Right, if they...
So that apparently is happening.
Imagine the contractor calls up, hey, I need these pipe.
Yes.
So they ship them out, they put out a
Yes.
bill, and then when
Yes.
the project's done,
Yes.
you take back the
Yes.
broken ones.
And there's 3 or 4 out there that weren't used, see, they don't...
Because it would seem if they're not gonna fix and send them back out there, all they gotta do is take that broken pipe, deduct it from your account, and
Yes.
it should be in line. Somebody's not doing their job.
Down there.
Well, I mean, it should be a little easier than what it sounds like to keep track of.
But we, we collect these invoices, they are mailed to us,
Right.
and then every month I sit down with those and compare how many we've paid for so far, how many are they asking for this time, is that not over the contract quantity?
Okay.
So that's what I do each month, just to be sure we're keeping them
So
on.
you're actually measuring feet of laid material to see
Yes.
offset against what you're being billed?
Yes.
That's about
Yes.
how you have to do it.
payment reflects all that calculation.
Yes.
So it
Now-
should come out.
Yes, it should come out, it will come out in the end. Now, on 2 Main and Lateral I, the one we've been talking about reclass, we got right down to the end, and we had Cretex about $10,000 less than they billed, but they accepted it because of our explanation on why we were paying what.
All right.
So, and it's rare for the contractor to break a pipe. Not so rare for the, if
By the
they're
time you
unloading
get
it,
it
they
there,
could break
right,
it,
right.
yeah. Not to say it can't happen, and,
Right.
Yeah.
Could.
so,
All right.
we're recommending this payment of $13,778.80 to Cretex for materials supplied basically during, November.
So moved.
Motion by Jerry,
Second.
second by Bruce, pay estimate number 7 for Cretex for $13,778.80. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now we have pay estimate number 7 for Denver Underground.
Yep, Denver Underground is doing the installation on this project. They have, after this payment, they will have earned $890,735. The payment this time for work done basically again during November is $40,653.90.
Where you at percentage-wise?
I've got them 98% complete.
Wow.
Yeah, they're just, well, thought they were gonna cross the last road late last week, they decided to hold off, weather conditions, ground conditions, everything. The last I heard Friday was they're gonna be crossing the road, the road south of Gary's property out there. They're gonna be going across that road, and then they'll have to go north into that property, cross that and hydro line again.
So they gotta cross that line again?
Yeah, so.
They had a little problem over the weekend, they had vandalism.
Oh, no.
They just called me this morning, wanted to know if I'd seen or heard of anything. Well, I don't live out there, and I haven't been out there for a week, but, they had a couple new batteries sitting there on one of the machines to be put in, and they stole those batteries.
Mhm.
And then they put mud in the gas.
Oh, geez!
And they had a camera in the cab of that machine, they were putting the mud in, and they must have seen the camera, so then they broke the window and stole the camera.
Oh, crap.
No kidding.
I hadn't heard that yet.
Pretty much out there in the middle of nowhere, I just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know how they're gonna, they had the sheriff out there this morning when I talked to him.
'Cause they were parked right next to the gravel road, and, yeah, so it'd be easy for somebody to walk to the machine, just right there.
One take the batteries.
Yeah, and put mud in the gas tank.
Why?
Gas tanks.
What do you, I don't,
That's the biggest problem.
Okay,
That'd be a real problem.
Yes, for number 7 for Jan Revenue, $40,653.90. Do I hear a motion?
Move we pay the number 7.
Motion by Rick,
second.
second by Moore. Other discussion on this, yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. What else we got for drainage, Rick? Anything new? Anything
Well,
different?
let me think. Trish and I are gonna be looking at DD 9, which is on the very east edge of the county. There was an annexation report done several years ago, but, a project didn't go forward at that time. And I believe there's been a petition submitted, or at least request for a work order, so we're gonna look into that. It basically crosses Highway 17 just north of 3, and then it crosses 3 just east of 17. It's just right over, and we found some old drawings that show the district going further than it was originally thought. So I'm thinking we can maybe just do an hourly clean out, but Trish and I will look into that and come back with a recommendation.
All right.
So,
I have a question for you.
yeah,
They fixed that, Doug Marshall fixed that over there in Avery, Kevin Goodell's, it's over in section 36, and I don't know how long ago that was put in there. But there's several bends in there, and evidently they didn't make the bends out of pretext, you know, on the main, 'cause
Okay.
they'll usually make those
yeah,
bends.
yeah, and that's what we called it.
Well, they didn't make those bends, and when they put those together, they just slid them as close as they could, and they started sucking dirt. So, my question is, if we have to do that, and then 5 years down the road, or 10 years down the road, and it's sucking dirt, somebody needs to be out there to make sure that those corners are either cemented, or, because we're gonna pay double.
Mhm.
Plus,
Oh,
we
yeah.
got dirt going into the main,
Yep, yep.
so,
We called for elbows, I pulled those plans out the other day to look, and I know I saw some elbows. Now, I don't know if this was, if there was an
Enough of
issue.
them, or what?
Well, yeah, I don't know if every one of them was manufactured. I don't know if we've got invoices for those, because the materials were part of the bid for installation, so.
well, didn't Doug say that there'd possibly be more?
It could be, yeah.
Could be,
So we've got several elbows called for out there, and some of those are fairly sharp, they'd have to do it over
Sure.
like 10 pipe or something. I loved it before when they made a pipe that had a 7% bend in the end of it. Those were wonderful, 'cause you could just do a sweeping bend, flow was better.
They quit doing those?
They quit doing those, yeah. Somebody said you can special order them yet, but I'm gonna check into that.
well, that's just, for us, if we don't have that in there, and then the contractor just gets them as close as they can and don't put concrete on them,
It's a mess, later.
But it's just gonna start pulling dirt.
That's right.
And then we got a new main.
It may take a while, but it will eventually fail, yes.
Rick, we have in Charles City, we're not the only county we talked half our time up on drainage, but
Yeah.
one of the counties we talked about hired somebody full-time
Doug did say.
just to observe what's going on every minute of the day.
Yeah, one of their county,
That, and he said just document it,
people.
I guess we'll see what happens.
that was his job, was just to check.
Sure.
Randomly check.
If you can work out something like that, it's great.
It costs a little more in the long run, but it might be money.
Yeah.
Well, it costs more in the long run, but on the other side of the coin, in 5 years, when it's pulling dirt,
That's right.
and we have to have another contractor go out there and dig it up and repair what they just fixed,
Mhm.
Well,
it isn't really costing us.
The biggest cost is now these are getting pretty deep, and when you have a contractor go
Oh,
out on
yeah.
a deep one, it's
Oh, it's
$2,500,
really,
it's not $250.
that's right, that's right, yeah. I think we should look ahead to this season and see if there's something that could be worked out that way.
And I also
I'd like
think
to,
this leaves more merit to using some plastic if this continues to be a problem. If Cretex don't wanna make a 7-degree one, well, we'll find somebody that's got a
Yeah.
product that'll stay
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
although we all like Pretex's speech for, it does lead to plastic. We'll listen to their speech, but Cretex guy's speech was great.
Should this inspection be built right into the bid, to the quote?
Well, you can,
Well, not,
not
You
directly,
just hire somebody and have...
I mean, we still need to get there to stake it, and I think we should do some periodic checks, just, even if you have somebody,
Well,
and it doesn't have to be much.
I think, and then it gets, the engineer, when you lay that out, if there's gonna be that much of a degree change, then we need to put that on notice and say, what
Yeah.
are we gonna do to make sure that's done
Right.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if it's a straight line run pipe, it's
Yeah,
not
simple.
gonna...
Yeah.
When you
Should be able to
when you
dig
find
straight.
something out and you see a degree change coming like that, let's get it in there, we're gonna
Yeah.
have to get it in there.
and almost any job, we're there once a week staking, so we can check alignment, check elevation, be sure that stuff's all right.
We better move on.
I do have a comment on that. In the meeting part that I was at Friday, the drainage clerks got together, and there was one drainage technician, and he works with secondary roads, but he also does the inspection part and, part of the drainage clerk's duties. So maybe that would
be an
be
option.
an option, is to...
I think that's probably the county that was talking up there
That was
in
Clark
Charles.
County?
No, they weren't there.
It was, we were interested in him more than the other stuff, just the fact that it's a different procedure and how to approach
Yeah.
things, and
You got 3 guys out
It's
there, why
another
can't somebody
way
do
to-
something like that?
safeguard these other things.
You know,
I know why.
You could cross-train a little bit with people too, because some people, certain times of the year, they're swamped, and other times not so much, so,
Like Jerry said, if you're gonna run 400 feet and it's a pretty straight run, we're trusting that they're gonna do it, but when you're gonna turn and go off at a different angle, I think
Mhm.
those all need to be verified that
They're a red flag.
Corner is-
Our experience, what we're seeing.
right.
and we've been compaction testing each road crossing now, I think you should continue that. We've got nuclear gauge that we can test the density with, so I'd sure like to see that continue, because that ensures that that's done right, so secondary roads doesn't have to deal with that forever, so.
All right.
But let's make it part of a discussion and see what can be figured out, because there's just a few things I'd like to keep our eyes on, but, the day-to-day things, I'm for anything we can do to help the quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks.
You bet,
Any
thanks.
discussion? If not, we'll
Motion to go out of drainage.
Motion by Jerry,
Second.
second by Rick, to go out of drainage. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Oh, yeah.
We're back in general session.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Get a copy of it.
Yes, that's...
Did Tricia volunteer to go out and,
I thought she said
is that what you were talking, that you were gonna stomp through the mud?
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's good.
the other counties do, Deb does,
Get your hip.
You get-
Why you be able to?
that's what she's requesting, I'm like,
We got some other
But
It's gotta be an old DOT car or something we
it
can
was
put.
very interesting. They do, she goes out and inspects the, repairs and that are done on site.
Yeah. Oh, the old one?
You just wanna get out of the office.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, yeah, and
She could do it sometime.
one day here, it was earlier this year, she went with me out in the field and to get a chance to see what actually happens. And she takes it on her own to drive by on weekends and stuff and kind of see how far they've gotten and things. But we were able to talk about how they were pushing the pipe together and they were working on a structure and how they seal the pipes and, yeah, the more you can understand about it, the better off you are. So, thank you.
Well, I used to haul those pipe for Cretex, and I can't imagine that, you know, if the contractor's getting charged for the broken ones, then I would think they'd be up checking when they roll them off the truck, because, you know, you're supposed to pull ahead and put them all.
Well, you
Yeah.
just broke all the tile over the one.
No, but thanks.
Yeah, just the thought associated really helped out.
You know what? My leg still hurts from the little episode I had with them. you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
But,
It don't work trying to stop with your body, does it?
no.
oh my gosh, a little momentum. Even the small diameter ones, the weight is amazing.
Probably trying to stop a rolling trailer or something like that. It's not the brightest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, instinct though.
Rick, did you get the ropes from steel ones too?
Mhm.
Wow, that was even worse.
Yeah. That
What do
was
we got
long
here? Just an extra
recovery.
Welcome back, Peggy.
That's the old one.
Oh,
The
yeah.
old one for comparables.
I didn't take that.
See, Robert.
I just thought it'd be interesting.
Sometime I'd like to talk to somebody about some of these, because it's not all black and white, some of this stuff in here like we're talking.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to general session, and Mr. Kruger had indicated to us that he had a conference today, was not able to be present. I talked to him on the phone, I think he sent us all an email concerning the ordinance that was before us, dealing with, 28 agreements for law enforcement centers, emergency management cities, and so forth. Do we have any discussion on that 28 agreement? Peggy, I think you gave us some information on that.
Yeah, I gave you a
Dollars.
sheet that listed all the different cities and how much, and then I just gave you a copy of one contract, so that you know that's what the contract or the agreement looks like. And then the numbers will change for each city too there. You'll notice there's not, an agreement for Humboldt, because Humboldt, we are already doing, 2080 with, for the LEC. So I'm assuming that's how you would like that. I'm assuming you wouldn't want to charge them additional if they're already continuing for the LEC.
You broke out your one city to be one of those in Humboldt County.
Yeah, and same thing with
Take a look at it.
Okay.
It's just the size.
This is something we've been talking about for a couple of years. We go to various meetings, they say we're behind the eight ball. I know it's not popular when we start talking about doing it, but it's a matter of equity. Someday, we're gonna have to get this done.
Well, I think you're lucky that you have a nice sheriff, because I think if Dean were decided tomorrow, we're not providing any more law enforcement services for the towns, not only, he would be correct. There would be nothing that can force him to do that. And that's, so he has done this, and he continues to do this knowing that he doesn't have to. And, you know, with the agreements that we've come up with and the ones that are gonna go to the towns, it's not a requirement of each city in Humboldt County to sign them. It's just that if they want the sheriff's department to provide law enforcement, then they would need to sign. If they wanna provide their own, it would be fine. It doesn't require them to say, okay, we want the sheriff's department to do this. You know, one town wants to hire their own cop, no problem. If 6 towns want to go together and hire one, fine. But it's just that in order for the sheriff's department to continue providing services, they would need to sign the 28 agreement. And talking to Dean, I think Dean wrote a letter to send to all the cities in Humboldt. It's cleaner this way, it helps with liability, but it also, it's not the sheriff's responsibility to provide law enforcement services for each city. I know somebody asked specifically what code section. It's not one code section. There's a code section in order to create a city, in your charter, you have to provide for police, among other things, prior to creating it. After your city's created, the mayor is required to appoint a police chief, unless there's a separate agreement for law enforcement, it would be a 2080 agreement. There's a case that goes through that analysis, but it was a county and a city, and the city wanted the county to provide law enforcement, and the Iowa Supreme Court said, no, the county is not required to provide law enforcement services for any city. The city is required to provide their own. The county can do it with a 2080 agreement, they can hire their own, but the county is not required, they said. And the reasoning behind it, they said, by that, then the county could require the state, and the state could require the federal government, so they didn't like that reasoning. Nothing has been changed since that case was decided, and I don't think it's a really old case, I think it's been in the last 20 years. But I know it's a hardship on the small towns. It's just something that, you know, I guess we were looking at, because the sheriff asked me questions about, you know, they felt like their deputies were spending a lot of time dealing with city ordinances, and, you know, probably half their time is barking dogs, property disputes, and arguments between neighbors, that involve city ordinances or municipal ordinances or municipal infractions. And I said, well, what does your 2080 agreement say? And we don't have one, so we need one. So this is, and then the sheriff he sits in a position where he has to agree, he likes how this is worded, and it'd be up to each city what they want to do. We can talk forever, but that's the reasoning behind it. It's necessary for the sheriff's department to provide law enforcement services to each city, that we have some sort of agreement in place. It's not a new requirement, it's just something that we haven't really enforced. I know there's been some agreement with Dakota City, but I don't believe there's any with any other town, and there needs to be.
There may have been some with Van Wyck at one time, but it wasn't very clear.
Right, and
I think what happened, John, what, you know, a lot of smaller communities 50 years ago did have some type of a town officer, and, you know, as they went away, we just kind of picked it up, I think, as the sheriff's department picked it up, so nothing was ever, you know, exchanged at that time, which should have been probably.
Right, and, you know, I know Dean's been a sheriff for a long time, and I don't believe he's signed any agreement since he's been the sheriff.
I don't think he has.
And, you know, when you look at the reverse, you can look at what happened in Rome, where they were upset with their city law enforcement. They ended up getting rid of him, and I believe the Pocahontas sheriff told them it would cost him $2 million for law enforcement. I know he was kind of joking, but it was, the sheriff came from a position of, you don't like this cop who was doing a good job, you don't want your residents getting tickets or getting arrested, fine, you deal with your own law enforcement. And that was from a long-standing problem between the city of Rolfe and the sheriff's department. But, you know, here, I think Dean has always been real good to work with people, and you can look at the line in Humboldt County, where Gilmore City's $100 per call for Pocahontas. You can look at Webster County, where they have cops in Dayton, Gallery, Otho, but all the other small towns have an agreement with the sheriff's department. And that is, I think, all true, almost every county around here. And so it may seem horrible, I know it's a hardship, but that's why this is coming up now.
I got one question. Now, this 28E agreement will last how many years? And then, like, when a new sheriff comes in, does he have the choice to change things?
Well, I think it says in 2 years, but there's ways for each side to get out of it. And, you know, you would look at, if, let's say Dean decides he's gonna retire.
Yeah.
And he retires in 2018 or 2020. Then that new sheriff could come in and tell you guys, yeah, we're not providing any law enforcement to any small town, to any town in Humboldt County. And then they could ask that you terminate those 2080 agreements, or the next time they come up for renewal, the new sheriff could say, I'm fine with this. And
as could any town.
right, and any town can get out of this too. I don't think it's not something that says, you know, you're in for 2 years with no chance to get out, and then in order to get out, you need to give us 2 years' notice. And again, that would be you know, I would expect each individual town will talk to their attorney to determine, you know, one, if it's okay, but two, if they like how it treats them, you know, we may get counter proposals or whatever, but as long as, and Dean's not gonna be the sheriff forever, so at some point, new sheriff would need to sign off, but, it would be in effect until it was terminated or the new sheriff refused.
Now, we're kind of just offering services to a requirement of the cities, right? They have to have law enforcement of some kind.
Right.
So they can either make a 2080 with us, or they can get a 2080 with somebody else, or they do it themselves.
Right, like Laverne could make a 2080 agreement with Cassuth County, no, or Alberta Police Department, or whatever. There's nothing requiring any town in Humboldt County to say, we have to go with the sheriff's department, the Humboldt County Sheriff's Department. You know, Gilmore City could go, you know what, we like what Pocahontas is doing, we'd rather pay them $100 a call for all of this.
Right.
You know, so it would be what each individual town wants to do.
Right.
So you're good with this? You helped set this up, right? The agreement?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Everything's good?
I don't,
Tony's represented here. You have any comments on this? How it affects you, or any pros or cons about it?
Well, basically, Angelique and I came to get information, because we've had a lack of information. What you've presented to us right now is news to us on some aspects. So, we don't have a problem with some type of an agreement. We want to know what it is. We have to do budgeting.
Sure.
January and February. We're sitting here not knowing what to do, so we can't do our budgeting. So look, we're wanting answers.
To answer that question, we've informally and informally talked about this for 6 months. It's been in the paper and so forth. We got decided finally and said, we gotta get this out because cities gotta get their budgets going. And in fact, we even talked about setting up, we have set up, one county supervisor or two and the sheriff will go to every city council. We hopefully, before their budgets are figured out this next year. And that's the reason it came ahead right now. We decided we need to get our act together too.
And
You're right.
The good thing about it going out with Dean is, I think, is Dean will go through and explain, you know, like John brought up, ordinance for barking dogs. If there's certain things that the city or the city clerks can handle that don't have to be responded to by the sheriff's department, that helps keep his costs down too. I mean, I think sometimes in the outlying areas, a lot of times there's nuisance calls that maybe could be resolved internally. Am I wrong? Is that right, John?
I think so, and I think the frustration, and I don't wanna speak for anybody, but
No.
I think, you know, some of the small towns are frustrated because they feel like the sheriff's department is not giving them the service that they require, and that they feel like they're owed, or they should get just, you know, general good service from law enforcement, and it becomes difficult when you have two deputies working for the entire county, and one of them's at court all day, which we're required to do now by the judges. If we have court, they want law enforcement here. And the other one is running down calls. They don't have the amount of time to run traffic. You know, I know Bo has complained about speeding, I know other towns have complained about speeding. And, you know, we get a call from, let's say, Redwood, there's kids on a golf cart. Well, by the time we get a deputy there, they're all gone. And it's, so a lot of what the sheriff's department is able to do during the day and during the night is sort of Band-Aid service. We have a problem with speeding. Well, we had a bar fight downtown, and both of our deputies are there. And they're gonna be tied up because this is the emergency that we have. And that's a drawback of being in a small county, in a small town, is we don't have the level of law enforcement that I think people would like. You know, we don't have, the troopers that work late at night are usually on Highway 20 or Interstate 35. They're not necessarily around here. They will come to help with accidents late at night, but that may take them 45 minutes. But if you get something at night, that may tie up all of law enforcement. If you have problems with speeders in any small town, a deputy will come and he will try to sit there and run radar and look to stop cars, but if he's called away because, like today, Dean's at a conference, Brian's picking up somebody for a mental health commitment hearing at noon today, he had to leave, or at 1 today, Brian had to leave at 6, So all we have on is Tim Fisher. And he's the one that called when this meeting started, but he had about 35 phone calls to return. He had what Ms. Renee was talking about with the drainage stuff. He had to go out and deal with that, plus he has some other calls, plus he has papers to serve. So he's probably not gonna be able to run traffic right now. And if there's a problem with the dog barking, you know, he's probably not gonna get there immediately. And
I think it should be the person that has the dog gets the ticket, and just fine him and be done with it, and that'll be the end of your dog barking, I'll bet.
Well, what happens with that, Mort, is, let's say we have a problem in Thor. They call the sheriff's department, the sheriff's department comes out, talks to the people who are complaining about the barking dog, talks to the person that has the barking dog, and that person usually isn't home, so that may take a couple trips out there, they leave a door knocker, and they tell them, hey, your dog is disturbing the neighbors, what can we do about this? And then they come back again, and maybe they write them a ticket, and we do deal with the ticket. But it ends up being a process that may take a deputy, 6, 7 hours of work time to write a ticket for a barking dog, and it's not because they're messing around or they're lazy, it's, okay, I gotta go talk to these people, I gotta go talk to these people, I gotta write a report, I gotta talk to city council, the mayor, the city attorney, and then I gotta go back out and write this guy a ticket, and then I gotta come to court, and then we pay him overtime to come to court. So it's not that it's the end of the world, but it does take more time than people think to deal with something as simple as a barking dog. For them to run traffic, they need about 45 minutes to an hour, and they can probably, during that time, write 3 or 4 tickets. You know, when they drive, when they're out driving around, and that's a lot of what they do, because they have the whole county, they patrol the county, they have their radars on. You guys don't see it, but we've seen a definite increase in the amount of tickets that the deputies are writing for speeding and other things, but they have their radar on, and they're stopping people. And they're writing tickets, they've had the troopers up here that have written several tickets, so they're writing more tickets, and they're out more, but it's hard when you're going to a call, and you see a car go by you going 20 miles over the speed limit, and you gotta go to that call. You're probably not gonna be able to stop that car. And even when we look at last Thursday, we had 2 police officers, 3 deputies, and a sheriff working. They had a search warrant, somebody sitting at the hospital with mental health commitment. They had Dean, who I tried to talk to at the end of the day, and I swear to you, I've never seen this before, he couldn't get off the phone. Every time he hung up, he got a new phone call. That went for an hour. And then the 2 deputies and the 2 police officers went to execute a search warrant. So, and that was about as many people as we have working at a time. And Dean is working on getting the statistics as far as calls to each community, what they've done, what types of calls, and hopefully we'll have those when he goes around. But I think that what I'm hearing is, when you look at the small towns, like, well, why would you do this to us? We don't like your service too much anyway, why would you just say, no, pay us, and it's not gonna get any better? The hope is that they can cut out some of the things that they're doing and have the city attorney work with maybe the complainers of the barking dog, because they're the witness, and have them come in and testify rather than getting law enforcement ramped up. And I think the city attorney for Dakota City, I know, has handled a couple lately, and I think he's done a nice job with those. But the hope is you give a little bit more power and responsibility to the city council, the city clerk, or someone who can direct the complainers to the city attorney, or a solution without law enforcement involved. Obviously, if there's safety concern, law enforcement's gonna be involved.
Right.
So.
Law enforcement, the sheriff's department would be there with or without a 2080 agreement in case of a real disaster.
Right, they would, obviously, no matter what, they would respond to emergencies.
Right.
And that's, the Humboldt Police Department responds to emergencies in Gilmore City when there's a problem. Just like the sheriff's department responds to a lot of things in the city of Humboldt.
And that's just utilizing your resources better.
Right.
I mean, anybody would do that.
And there's nothing to say like Dakota City couldn't come to an agreement with the Humboldt Police Department. It's just, instead of the Humboldt Sheriff's Department. I mean, there's certainly a lot of ways to go, and there's no requirement that you accept this, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of information, and Dean wrote a letter. I don't know if you all got it yet or not.
That's just to add to us, like, we're not here to complain at all, like, for Dakota City, I mean, as a city clerk, I appreciate what we have for Humboldt and Humboldt County Department. You know, it's kind of a two-sided there, like our ordinance says, you know, the sheriff's department upholds our ordinance. I mean, that's how that works. And as far as dogs or other things, like, their jobs aren't gonna change whether people sign the 20E agreement or not. So if the sheriff's department, if they just don't like that they have to have dogs, I mean, I know none of them do. It's a hindrance. None of them like to deal with the dogs. I don't blame them on that. But we live in a community where there's pets. Like, that's always gonna be there. I think that, so, I don't know the answer to the dog, you know.
Well, I didn't mean to think about just dogs.
I know, but it has been for us, there's been a lot of, you know, in the last year and a half, it seems we have had quite a few different, you know, dog instances.
But once you address them, does it get better then if somebody gets a ticket or a fine? Does it help then, you feel, or?
It does, yeah.
I mean, that's part of what's
But like,
a
as
slow
the city
process.
clerk or as the council, like, I don't know what they can do. When someone gets a ticket and it hurts them financially, then maybe they pay a little bit better attention
That's
and
what
they
you're
can
hoping.
change their home environment to make that not happen again, you know.
Right, that's what you hope.
And for us, like, I just,
And I told Carl
law
last week,
enforcement, you know,
I was talking to
the
Carl
community or
last
someone could
week.
come, you know, just educate people before it all gets to this point of, you know, we're already having a budget meeting next week. There's things with the, you know, water department and streets and sewer that obviously are high preference, you know, priority for us
Right.
too, that just wanna, I don't like raising our taxes.
Right.
You know, and we just prided ourselves the last 7, 8 years that I've been, you know, city clerk, that we try to have really great, you know, water and sewer, and the rates for that have had to go up a lot because of DNR and just things we've wanted to, you know, to do and make it be a better place, better community. I mean, I think Dakota City has, you know, done a lot of good the last 10, 15 years with our housing division and just a lot of things that the council's been adamant on working forward and forward and forward, and, you know,
Well,
trying to,
and I think
agreement is, that isn't the issue
No.
for us. We just want to be educated on what it is and how much it needs to go up, or, you know, just the different specifications.
Well, I think it should be noted too, you know, I know Dean feels that Dakota City has been good in the past. You've given, you know, you're paying $1,000 to help on the school situation, which you got a school up there and you want officers going through there and stuff. But what I think the board in helping Dean come to some kind of decision, the number one thing, we have to have 2080 agreements, and that's, I mean, this is way long overdue, and in this day and age, you better have something in agreement, because when there is issues, you need to go back to something, so that's very important. And in finding out about this, we just found out, you know, that everybody has some kind of a fee to it, so we wanted to make ours low, that's why we went to $10. And, you know, then at the same time, we didn't want to come back and ask for an increase every year, so we put a 5% in there, and that can change at some point. But at this point, we would probably be one of the lowest fees around, and I hope that helps. And then the other side of it is, that's why a couple supervisors hopefully will get out during your meetings, city council meetings, and try to go over these issues. I mean, if we just find a way to explain how to take care of the dog issues, the little things that keep the cost down for everybody, I mean, these are just things we could discuss with you. And then you can ask us, you know, kind of what services you do get for this, so. And I like the idea Dean's kind of trying to get some numbers on number of trips to individual towns. Maybe we find an area that's got more concern than others. Maybe we can talk to them on ways to make that better, so we don't have to make some of the unnecessary trips.
You read the paper that Kent puts together each week, you see all the sheriff's calls, some of them are ridiculous things that get called out for.
Well, I think, I really had to talk to Ken about this.
2 calls.
I think there's, not every single call to law enforcement is put in there. If you see the law,
You wouldn't want
in the
to.
law
You
enforcement.
sit down and
they're about
dispatch
50
for a little
days,
bit, it's incredible how often that phone.
There are certainly funnier calls, and I think those almost always make their way into the paper. And they should be. They should obviously be in the paper because they're funny. Like the Swan, the Chinese restaurant they shoot down in the river, and the raccoon that was in the pop machine. There's some genuinely funny calls and funny things that happen. But, you know, when you look at that, I can tell you, if I had a mouse in my house, my first call would not be to 911. You know, and you see...
But it might be somebody's, yeah.
Yeah, but it is somebody. I mean, they got a 911 call because somebody they found that their covers had been gnawed on. that's probably not, you know, a super huge emergency, it's probably, but
Right.
these things happen, and they do end up with a lot of calls where you could probably make an argument that were not maybe necessary. But they respond. I think that's one of the nice things, is you don't necessarily see in those, sheriff's department laugh and say, we're not coming.
Right.
But they go.
They might.
They don't.
The domestic calls, they definitely want to answer those.
Right, I think it shows that they take every call seriously, and they, even the ones that you read that you laugh at, you know that somebody from law enforcement talked to that person that called and probably went to their house and dealt with what happened. It may have been short, but they still dealt with it.
Other discussion on possible adoption of this ordinance, 28 agreement, law enforcement. Okay. I think we've talked about this for at least a year. This is the first time we really formally, maybe we aired not getting out to the cities on it, but...
Come.
They're always the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
We have ordinance number 63.
No.
No, we'll back up.
2080 agreement.
2080 agreement, I'm looking for wrong ordinance here. Okay. Other discussion? Anybody care to make a motion to adopt this 2080 agreement for the small town law enforcement?
I'll make the motion to approve the 2080 agreements for law enforcement, emergency services, cities in Humboldt County.
Okay. Do I hear something?
With the current numbers that we have plugged in there?
Yes, with the current numbers.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the proposal of 2080 agreement, including the assessments of $10 per capita as of the last census, with a 5% escalation rate. This will be a 2-year 2080 agreement. Other discussion?
I don't believe there's any more calls now than there was when Bradley and Junior used to do this, and there was only 2 people, and there's probably 15,000 people in the county.
Well, Mort, go down and sit in the dispatch for a half an hour, you would be shocked how many calls come in there. That phone rings constantly. I've been down there a lot, working through the LEC, and it's unbelievable.
I told Carl the other day, I wanted to see how these other towns responded to it. If they went along with it, I'd go along with it.
Yeah,
But
I know.
wanna see that first.
I understand the $10 is gonna be a burden for the cities.
Because they're gonna get an increase now anyway because of the $1.5 million they spent for the LEC. That's gonna raise your taxes.
Well,
And everybody in the little towns are gonna pay for that too.
Talking about equity, you know, about probably the larger communities ought to get rid of their police force and let the sheriff only do that and let everybody pay for it then. That's, we're talking about equity here for every citizen in the county, really.
mhm.
Well, yeah, Humboldt could do the same thing.
Humboldt could say, we're gonna fire all our policemen and let the sheriff take care of it.
We'll sign a 28 degree.
Unincorporated your town.
Could do that.
I mean, it's a problem, isn't it? But I think Humboldt County's been behind for many, many years. And, you know, and really for a county sheriff to go into a small community, he doesn't have justification to even go in there.
What is the concern with me is been...
How many years has it been since they started charging? I bet it hasn't been that many years
I don't know.
until this took off and started going.
I don't know.
I never asked anybody up there how many years they'd had their,
I know I tried to get, setting up programs for ISAC programs next year, we was looking for topics, and I suggested, maybe we need to talk about law enforcement. They said, we've had that for years, no use beating a horse to death. Nobody wants to hear about something we already have. So I couldn't get it on the topic to discuss. So I don't know the answer to that, Mort, but I couldn't get anybody willing to have a program on that for us.
I know we discussed it last year in Charles City, and we were the only county up there that didn't have one.
How many counties go up there?
Well, there's supposed to be 22, but I don't know if they were all
That's still,
represented.
you know, that's quite a...
What is it, Wright County, I don't think does, is it? Wright County or Hamilton, one of the two don't.
John, do you know, does Wright County have a fee or Hamilton County?
Wright County, there's police department in Eagle Grove.
That's the other problem, they got their own
And
police
I think
department.
Belmont, I think, has police, I think they have...
And Goldfield did have, up to maybe recently, had their own.
No, they're covered by
They used to.
Eagle Grove.
But they did,
I would
okay, so
say,
they made an
they
arrangement
signed
with
one with
Eagle
Eagle
Grove.
Grove.
Eagle Grove comes up there.
So they wouldn't have to do it with the county.
That's three equal sized towns, so they have 3 police forces already.
I
If you
would,
go away from Humboldt County, most counties have 3 or 4 police departments, it seems like.
that's the other thing,
So-
so there's more communities to
Yeah.
share.
I mean, you Jewel, Ellsworth, Stanhope, and Hamilton County, and Humboldt, and Webster, Gallery, Dayton, Otho. I can't remember if they still have a cop in Duncan that did. Manson has his own cop. Manson has 2, I think. But they've always had police there. You know, up here, it's been the city of Humboldt and Humboldt County. Cassuth County, I don't know. There's Algona and there's the sheriff's department.
That's all they'd have.
Pocahontas, they have a lot of police departments. They don't in Gilmore City, I don't know what they have in Rolfe anymore, but I think Lorenz has a police department, Pocahontas has a police department. I don't know if I think they have others, but they have, I think as you go to these counties, there's a lot of counties that have a lot of different police departments.
I moved here 21 years ago from Sac County, and I lived in Odebo. At that time, we had our own city cop. Since that time, they do not have a city cop. The Sac County Sheriff covers them through a 2080 agreement. So that's one example I know of for sure. And that's happened within the last 10 years probably.
But I don't,
They've had 2080 agreements here.
but
I've got a paper at home that shows some of that 2080, Peggy probably knows about
and
it.
I think the last agreements that were made here were done by the Stovies.
But what,
With
who's
Marv,
Sylvia?
when Marv was sheriff, and I don't know if those are,
Well, we don't know if all of them got signed even, do
we
we?
don't know who signed them, we don't think, it's a little confusing, but I think at least a couple of towns didn't sign them for sure, but it just, all Dean has to do is say no,
And we don't wanna do that, that's why we're presenting
we
an
can't-
option.
We can't force the sheriff, not that Dean would ever do this. And I'm not trying to make Dean, because Dean will not. I mean, if it comes down to need an agreement or he's not supposed to provide law enforcement, he's gonna provide law enforcement. There's no way he would.
But that being said, we're better to have these new 2080 agreements now,
Right.
because if we have a new sheriff in a few years, it could change.
Well,
Yeah,
the
attitude.
sheriff, Dean,
Anybody.
gets frustrated and says, I'm done, see you guys later.
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
sheriff could start and say, yes, we're not doing anything.
Right.
But I think.
And in that cause, as a board, Dean came to us, he presented why we had to have another officer here a couple of years ago. You know, we're being dictated all the time, we didn't necessarily like the fact that we had to put a sheriff in the courtroom day in and day out, and I'm not really sure that the sheriff's department likes sitting there when they could be out making these calls. But, you know, we didn't like that, and we didn't really wanna pay, $60,000 plus with benefits and a law enforcement, but we did it because Dean couldn't handle it anymore. And what you're telling me is it's, the other day, it wasn't too good of a day anyway, it doesn't look like it's getting any better.
You know, when you look at, like, there's not much that can happen here, it doesn't basically make everyone busy, this work.
Well, and the number one issue from the mental health and from society standpoint is, you know, maybe Mort's right, maybe back in the day, you didn't have that many, but, you know, this mental health issues, where you gotta transport somebody, and he's gotta have a matron of honor, you know, it's a big deal, it takes a whole 8-hour day for go to Iowa City and come back, and you're tired just from being on the road doing that. I mean, that's not really law enforcement in your county, but you have to provide that.
They sat with somebody at the hospital Wednesday, Thursday, it was gonna be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, into Monday. And we figured something out with a bunch of different phone calls, but the other thing is Humboldt Hospital doesn't exactly have security, so when we have a commitment, we have to
Somebody's
have
out
these
there.
things the entire time, and it may take 16 hours to find somebody a bed, or 30 hours to find somebody a bed.
If you find one, yeah.
I don't think back in them days when we had a cop up there that they probably had to have the training they have to have now either. They were just appointed as a town marshal and he took care of the dogs and.
And that's the other thing, and I know there's towns that maybe can't afford this. The alternative is the $50,000 for a police car and probably 30 plus benefits to hire a police officer. So you're probably looking at about 100 and some, and then you would need an office for them. And you probably have to pay dispatcher fees. And if they arrested somebody on any city charges, they'd have to pay jail fees.
Yeah.
And then you have to go to the law enforcement academy, so you know, that would be a couple, 3-4 months of training, and, you know, what we're seeing now is, we've lost a couple of police officers lately. It's really useful to come here, go through the academy, get certified, work a year or two, and then go to a bigger place. And it's nothing against these people, because they're nice people, they're good officers, but it, you know...
They're taking advantage of what needs, I mean, what anybody would do.
That's happened,
Yeah.
that's happened in Fort Dodge, that's
Sure.
happened here, that happens anywhere where you've got young people that want experience, but they wanna go someplace else. They'll just keep looking, so I think we're lucky to have the law enforcement we have here, and,
We did have our own jail, in fact, we still have the jail cell, I believe.
Probably do, yeah.
Our agenda item was to review and approve the 2080 agreement, and we have a motion and a second. Do we have other discussion?
Call for the question.
Okay, Bruce calls for question. All those in favor of the 2080 agreement as printed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is first reading for ordinance 63 regarding all-terrain and off-road vehicles. And I think we've had a discussion on that a couple times. We have another proposal, we have a clean copy that Dean submitted to us. I think Paul sent us a butcher copy that he had some corrections for. So we're open for discussion on that item. This will be the first reading of an ordinance.
I think Peggy went through and made some of the corrections that we asked for last week, and they've been updated.
It's my understanding from what little research I did, and this is a carbon copy of what they have in Wright County, per word.
And then we just tweaked some of the errors in the language. We tweaked some of that on the commission, we put in conservation, we put in natural resources. I'm happy with this copy. I'd go ahead and make a motion to have our first reading on this county ordinance number 63 regarding the all-terrain off-road vehicles.
Okay, we have a motion to carry to approve the first reading of off-road, all-terrain vehicles, presented to us. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Rick. All those in favor of approving the first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We'll schedule the second reading for this, the next meeting of it. Make sense, Peggy? We have to have two?
We have to have one.
We have to have one. We should,
Rick,
dispense with it.
read that paragraph and see what you think of it.
This one down here.
Motion to approve the first reading. If we
Right.
not do that, we need to dispense with the second reading.
You have the option of having a second reading or,
Right.
not doing the second and third, just approving it on your first.
And if you do the second and third, it's in the paper. Go ahead.
The one thing that, Paul just pointed out that I would suggest probably a good idea is that the end, when it talks about proof of insurance,
Right.
page 2, I think it's about the last paragraph. It should probably be, the insurance could technically mean anything. So, you might want, I think it's paragraph 6 on page 2, you might want to put pursuant to Iowa Code, section 32120, capital B, that's, motor vehicle insurance.
What was that again, pursuant to Iowa Code, what?
321.20, capital B.
Okay.
I apologize for, that just means that they have motor vehicle insurance. So, which they should have.
You mean the part about the operator has proof of insurance is
Yeah.
enough? You saying?
No, because I think you could probably interpret that to mean any insurance.
Yeah, you might have liability, you might have
Here's-
household insurance. you might have-
Here's my boat insurance,
Yeah.
here's my homeowner's insurance, here's my health insurance. It would be easier that way, it would be clear. And the other, we could do it the other way too. Oh, you don't have renter's insurance? Take it.
Mhm.
All right,
We make
So you wanna
change.
amend that?
Second reading.
I'll do that then.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I can carry it.
Do it with the second reading,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
changes.
Right,
Yeah, you
let's
do.
that, yeah.
We'll bring those 4 changes into the second reading.
Yeah.
I figure with this ordinance.
So,
from the
just
county
leave it
can take
set for a
the
week, and
write them out. The country-
next
we
week,
don't have a blank
that way if Dean
check
comes across
process.
anything.
Then Dean can be here
Or
in case he wants to.
Good idea.
Listed.
Unless he calls in again.
We'll have a second reading this week with those noted changes.
All right, that sounds fair.
Okay.
Okay,
I was just reading that what he sent us, but that was the only change he
Paul, I think we're ready for you.
noticed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a busy morning.
Half hour. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I saw drainage, so I wasn't too worried.
I tried to meet.
When you see a thing that says DD2 on it, it's gonna take a while. DD anything. DD. When they see anything secondary roads, they wait. The only thing I have this morning is to approve hiring secondary roads temporary part-time laborer, and that gentleman, for the second, we're still trying to hire temporary part-time laborer position as the lead man, but Roger Goshner has agreed to fill in, as a second call. He doesn't want to be the primary call. Roger Goshner, a former employee with Humboldt County, I would propose him as being a former employee, close to employees' wages of $21 an hour. Last year, we hired him in the same capacity at 20. And he filled in for only a few days last year when we had an employee that was gone for some, I can't remember what it was, Jerry, but we had him, he was over at Hardy a little bit. But he would be the lead man to fill in until we, get full-time staff, back in Hardy, Iowa, which, the cutoff for the full-time job is this Wednesday at 4:30, I believe, is when it is.
So what when you're doing this temporary, what are you looking for so that they can maybe experience, how much time would it take to, I guess I'm just...
Well, we have one now, for instance, one that didn't fill out an application that inquired, and we're giving him a dog and pony show this morning, and he's jumping into a motor patrol, see if he wants anything to do with it. And that's a good way to
I read
find
an article
out.
in the paper the other day, I listened to an ad, DOT is looking for snowplow drivers. The only requirement there is a Class A driver's license, drug test, and air brakes.
Right.
And they said they'd train on the spot.
Well, that's what I wondered if what we had doing.
Right, it'd be similar requirements. Once they're in the system with even Mr. Goshner, we'll run him back, he's back on our list for, certified drivers, therefore he's in the random pool. We have to test him before he goes.
Right, but we aren't gonna put a blizzard tomorrow, we aren't gonna put a guy out there that's
No,
never been in twelve, that's...
No, what we've done, though, we've had blizzards, where we've had somebody that's come in day 2 or 3 when we're trying to clean up, and then we take the time to let them go play out here somewhere in the gravel.
Right.
And, get their feet wet before we throw them out at 5 in the morning.
Exactly.
Snow.
Only about 6 levers there.
No, and we want, experience is nice, but, it's tough to find somebody on call, available, and only when we need them. And that's the part where the DOT's gonna hire 1,100 of them, I wonder how they did. Because we have trouble finding them.
Right.
We're looking at, trying to fill positions, and there's not too many people here to do that.
Okay, we have a recommendation from Paul to hire Roger Goshner, $21 an hour as temporary part-time employee.
So moved.
Motion by Bruce,
Second.
second by Rick. Other discussion? Anything to add to that, Paul?
I hope we have more coming in, I hope we have an additional one next week. That'd be my hope, because we need one to fill a full-time route. Whenever we run the roads, we need him.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Otherwise, that's, it for me this morning. Looks like, this week is uneventful from snow removal activities. Actually, it's almost too muddy again. Pretty soft out there again.
Them roads are bad, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they're soft.
Yeah, and it's too wet to go out there with the main.
It'll do a lot of good today, sunshine instead of cloudy and drizzly.
I think next few days will be good for us.
Yeah, it'll be good. The well-drained, the ones with a good crown, will do fine. The ones that are flat, with melting
A lot of
snow.
them still have that shoulder on them too, you know, you need to pull in the...
Well, some have little bit of curves on them, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we fight every spring.
yeah, I do.
Very good, that's all I had this morning.
Thank you.
Sorry you missed the retirement party, but...
No, we scheduled
Very good.
it. It was scheduled out of the shop scheduled it, and I knew you guys were gonna be gone, and it was, canceled last, Monday and went Thursday.
Oh, and we got home.
Yeah, I wish that I'd texted him.
Okay, next item of business, we have Approve a lease arrangement with Marco Incorporated for copy machine and assessors and recorder's office.
Okay.
Annual event, I think. Every other year?
3 years, usually is what it is. The cost has actually gone down. It was $249.48 per month, and it's down to $209.72.
Oh, that's
Well, that's a good deal.
So, yeah, it's always good, and it's a 60 months lease is what it is. And the figures that are off to the side down there are just, Diane just happened to ask them what would it cost if you bought it outright. She just wanted to know that.
So there's a pretty good savings.
$438.
No, that's what we were paying.
That's what you were paying.
Yeah. Now we'll pay the $209.70 plus your copy fees over that includes the copy fees over on the other one.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Marco Inc. for the copying machine for the assessor and recorder.
Motion by Jerry, do I hear a second? Second by Moore. All those approving copy machine service agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Peggy, where does it show that, you said it was 209?
Right here, more.
Oh, 249. Oh, 209.
For
Okay,
60
okay.
versus,
Yeah.
Are these all, I mean, does every office have the same style copier?
No, they vary depending upon what their
What
need is.
their functions
The
are.
assessors and ours are pretty much the same.
Well, I guess my question is, when someone comes to service this, do they have one or two other copy machines in the building, or do we have everybody?
They're pretty much all in the courthouse through Marco.
Okay, that's what I
You may find in
wondered.
the sheriff's office or the secondary road, they may be with a different vendor.
So, we don't have 14 different people making service calls at different times if we...
Right.
We've had good service with these guys.
We've had very
That's
good
what I thought.
Good.
All right, I think that's, Peggy, do you have anything else before we give a report?
Let's see real quick. Oh, the solid waste commission sent a form saying that the landfill, report had been filed.
Yeah.
I wanted you to know. I
we got a little issue up there with the rodent keeps chewing this cord off, so we're gonna bury the line. It's a minor deal, we just gotta get somebody to do it.
You gotta put conduit around it.
Yeah, they're gonna put conduit and run it under the ground.
Yeah, what else do you do?
We have power right there too, it wouldn't even have to be buried, it's just gotta be hard conduit, because something likes the cord.
Must be a good flavor of plastic.
And I mean, and they don't just chew it in half, they chew it in little 6-inch pieces.
And not killing it when it's plugged in.
Yeah, and it doesn't kill them, I don't understand that. Like,
Yeah.
chew the cord in half.
Maybe he's coordinating, he's unplugging it before he...
He must be.
Could be a smart one.
The plug's still in the outlet.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, tell us what you
I
did
was
this
just gonna say, one more thing. On our last insurance billing too from EBS, we were billed $500, $400 of it was for a 509A actuarial fee, and $100 of it for a filing fee for that. We called and talked to them and said, why did you put this on a bill? We don't remember seeing this in the past. And they said, well, normally they just took it out of our partial self-funding account. They decided to specify it all out. We can't just write a check for the $500. So I told them to take it out of the partial self-funding.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you guys know we have a good balance in our partial
They wanted to make
self-funding.
sure we had a clear billing of what it was for,
Yeah.
and we need to take it, and we can take it out of there.
Yeah.
So they'll do that in the future, I assume, they'll
Yeah.
send it and ask you to take it, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Okay, no, okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we had our drainage meeting on Friday in Fort Dodge at 8:30, and, well-attended, re-elected the 3 members that were on the board back on there, and, I guess I'll let you guys talk about the rest of it, what you thought of it. I meet with this group monthly, and this just happened to be our annual meeting, and I would've liked to have Doug Strite have a little more on the drainage thing, but, I think it's pretty clear that we're gonna go forward with that lawsuit, and we need to establish our grounds, and we need to, hopefully defend our position and see what happens, but I do believe it's gonna be a long, drawn-out situation. That being said, many counties did put money into that to help support it, and we did put our 5,000 in there, and I appreciate that, and I think it's gonna be money well spent because of the severity of the situation, so. Rick?
Well, I wanna say something. Sure. Effort. When we done that drainage up at Bode, you know, we all got our assessed bills I see the elevator up there, or the railroad got a bill for $2,900 and some dollars, was it, from this,
Okay.
that repair we made? I wonder if they've ever paid that.
It'll be of interest if they pay that one and they don't wanna pay the other one.
Yeah,
That's a good point. I don't know. Maybe ask Trish, maybe she'd know.
yeah, I'm gonna ask her,
I'd ask her.
see what you find out. Okay.
That's all I had for meetings.
All right, well, Thursday morning call, I went up to Charles City for the ISAC regional meeting, and that's always kind of a fun one to go to. All the counties, they get up and talk about what's going on in their counties, things they've done, problems they've come into, and, Hancock County, their engineer quit in September, I think it was. Just got upset and just walked out. Is that right? Have you heard?
Something similar to that.
Something similar to that. So anyway, they asked Wright County to help them out for a while, and I was just visiting with them, and they say they're getting on pretty good doing that, and they're gonna go another 6 months or so, I think, till midsummer, and really look at it and see if they might continue with the sharing process. And I asked them, well, what do you do then? And they said, well, they'll have the one lead engineer, and they have their assistant, and then they have like a superintendent that runs their, road crews. Or maybe that was Palo Alto and Emmett, because they're also sharing, aren't they?
But they both have supers up there.
Yeah, they have superintendents that run the road crews. It is of interest, something different than we do. And,
Wright's been in that before, they were Wright Hamilton for years.
oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they voted to dissolve it, and then when Hancock County was looking for a filler, they went to Wright, and that's how he was hired when they split, the current engineer, so he hasn't been part of the shared engineer before. It was Danny Wade and Randy Will before, for Wright Hamilton.
Okay. And then, let's see, what else was it? Oh, they all...
Gregory, Cassuth County was talking about their county engineer, they said they were working on drainage districts, and they were also leveling ground and laying concrete before they built a new building, using their people a little different than we did. He was bragging about how they...
Oh, yeah, they put up some new building, cold storage building up there or something, and they...
I was up in the North Phillips shop, it's clear up in the north end, they usually do the site work, we did our site
Yeah,
work.
I thought you'd built your site up and stuff.
Yeah, and they did the same thing on their, maintenance shop,
We did that
facilities, which is up north of 169.
What does Cassuth County do with their drainage? 'Cause they must do some of it themselves.
Not sure.
I know they use INS for a lot of their projects up there. They use INS for a lot of their
For the
projects.
maintenance, I think Mort's talking.
Oh, you're talking maintenance?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The only that I'm aware of is north of Odison, where they were doing it.
Yeah,
I
because-
haven't seen that.
Yeah, he was out there, and I don't know if they
I don't know how much.
ever pulled the other tile out to get that roofed out or not.
They just have it fenced off now, I just drove by it. So I can't tell you how
Okay.
active they are in repairs, I can't tell you that.
But on another note, I think I mentioned it earlier, almost every county up there talked about workforce shortage of labor in their county. Their businesses are struggling finding employees to do the job. We happen to have, Representative Burns there? Josh Burns there. And I told him, I said, that what we hear is our employers are in competition with the government to get people to work, because the government subsidies are equal to what the pay is to just stay home and not work. So, we had
I
a
think
little
that's
discussion
part of
on
it,
that.
but I think, even listening this morning, I think another concern I can see is that, a lot of these jobs have been here, and family members went to these jobs and they've worked there 40 years. I mean, I'm just looking at our county maintenance crew, I'm looking at the courthouse, you look at we're all getting into that upper age, and in the meantime, because agriculture's been soft, because other jobs weren't there, all our young kids have left.
They've left this area.
We've got a larger percentage of young people leaving the area that we used to have. Rick and I were young ones, and we kinda stayed around, people like us stayed around, but now you're looking at our kids, and I have one son that stayed around, but the other two, most of these young kids have gone somewhere else, and it's hard to get them back.
Jump in on that, I taught boys down in Webster County back in the 60s, and I can probably say about a third of my students all stayed home on the farm.
There you go.
They're still farming down there. But the graduates now, they don't live in the county anymore, they're gone.
No, and that's where a lot of the conversation was, try to keep some of the youth in the county working, because we need good quality workers, and they thought maybe they should work more in low-tech schools, rather than pushing all these kids to go to a four-year education, because they come out of there with a huge debt, and they're really, a lot of them don't go into the fields they went into school for.
They kind of criticize the high school a little bit for being too college prep and not
Yeah.
taking care of the vocational people. We get so carried, and parents, it's our parents' fault. We all want our kid to be a four-year PhD type thing, but somebody's got to do the other jobs too, and some
Yeah.
people are better suited for those jobs. And consequently, the high schools quit having vocational courses. They may come back around with career education like we had in the '70s.
Yeah.
There's a need.
But like I say, that's a very good meeting up there. They talk about mental health a lot too, Jerry. You probably would have enjoyed that. And then Friday, I was down in Fort Dodge for the drainage. That probably come across.
No, I took it really faithfully.
Yeah, you know.
They didn't mention me in that.
They discussed
You're
mental
lost.
health a lot.
You're lost.
Yeah, we did. We discussed it quite a bit up there. They did.
He's the head guy.
Yeah. Careful.
All right, go ahead.
Wait a minute. Okay, the second, head hazmat, that meeting in Fort Dodge. They had 8 different incidents for the month, but there's only one I really want to talk to you about. I'll read it here, some of it. Responded to Highway 17 and 340th Street in Hamilton County on September 26th for a motor vehicle incident involving a passenger car and a fairway semi-tractor. The hazmat team was requested by the Stan Fire Department from a gravel tank that was leaking diesel fuel. So they drilled it and pulled the fuel out and put it in drums, and the leaking tank was drilled and diesel offloaded into overpacked drums. The team was on the scene for approximately 2 hours. But in the meantime, another team showed up. It was called Tony's Tire at DCAT in Fort Dodge, or in, Webster City, Hamilton County, yeah. And, we terminated, Coleman's contract, and, that contract was for $100,000 a year. We were paying $50,000 every 6 months is what we were doing. That's when we told him after 6 months, we'd review it, and if we were unsatisfied with it, we'd, go ahead for the next 6 months, but with this lawsuit going on, we just canceled it, and we're going someplace else, and they're a little cheaper too. In fact, it's Burial, I think, is the one we're going with. I guess Story County does a lot of work with Burial, and they really like them, so. But that was, mental health in schools, so. But,
Who did you let go, Coleman?
Coleman, she's got a lawsuit going on for fraud, and she says that the bookkeeper that was working for her at the time, she's been let go, but,
What's Coleman's first name?
I couldn't tell you.
The lady?
It's a lady,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So you decided to go with Burial, and you're in?
Yeah,
That
for the
makes
next
sense.
contract, and
You know what cost?
we had everything all rolled out, so once she was notified, the others would start taking over, but they're still gonna have to...
So what's your cost for Burial gonna be, do you know?
It was less than half, I believe.
Really?
To start with.
That's...
We'll see.
Yeah, let us know what that...
Yeah,
let us
I
know
will.
and find out what your cost is. Huh.
Yeah. But that was all I had, those 3 meetings.
Thursday afternoon there, I ran through the party out at for the retirement party. Then I had a meeting down 6 o'clock Thursday night for the CFR board. We do have some things going on down there that in the next few, weeks, hopefully they'll have, something more concrete, and I offered again to have Michelle come up and talk to our board and give us an update as to all the things that they are doing, and, so in the next few weeks, hopefully we'll have a visitor come up and she can relate some of the activities that we have going on down there, and then...
Still working on a building program?
We are.
Good.
And that's where we're at. So, and Friday, I went down to, the drainage meeting with, down in Fort Dodge. And after you guys left, I had Paul get my picture with Mike Stensrud, so we gotta ask if next year we wanna be the bouncers for the drainage meeting. And Mike says, well, as long as nobody kicks me in the back, he's had back surgery a couple of times, and I said, well, as long as nobody kicks me in my plastic knee, I'm good. So, that was it.
Very good. I had lots of meetings, I don't know whether just accomplished anything. On Tuesday, we had a security meeting here at courthouse again. We continue to meet about 2 weeks or so, trying to hash out what we do with courthouse security. That afternoon, we continued daycare, and you heard some of that discussion this morning. That's moving along pretty good. Wednesday, had a Midas meeting in Fort Dodge, and basically just heard the audit report from Anderson Firm, and had the bills paid, and ate at lunch. It was Christmas party, and went home. Thursday, we had a wellness committee meeting, and that was talked about a little bit this morning too. We're trying to get that thing put together. We got some plans now. And the problem we're gonna have, we may run head-on with daycare versus wellness on fundraising, so something else to go back a little bit. Then one day this week, Kruger and I and Melanie Larson went over to the insurance office. We did get insurance purchased for the commission. We did not have insurance before, so now we're covered. And we found out the commission is covered there. Every little town's gotta have insurance. Then we checked on whether the conservation board, E911, and those kind of things, and we were reassured by Larry that we are covered in those areas. We'll find out in this.
So are we covered then with the commission? I mean, each town has their own coverage, so that covers them. And then you and Dean are covered then too?
Right, we're covered through the county.
So we are good on that.
We're not a problem here.
So did you have to add anything, Carl?
We had to add, the commission is gonna pay for a policy themselves, employer's insurance policy.
On top of what?
Right.
And what's that cost gonna run?
Probably about $500 a year.
Okay.
They had to send in for underwriting.
And then who pays for that? Each individual?
The commission will.
The commission itself, come out of their budget?
Right, and we
That's probably a good idea.
We indirectly pay for it,
Mhm.
but that's
Okay.
recommended by the
Okay.
attorneys, we need to get that on.
Being part of the
Well, that was a good thing to get updated, yeah.
And let's see, we went to the district meeting in Charles City on Thursday, which was really a pretty good meeting. We spent a lot of time on drainage, spent a lot of time on mental health. Josh Burns was there, and we thank him for his work he did on the gas tax last year. Amanda Regan's always there. We changed the format a little bit for next year. Always before, we've had those show and tell in the morning, and we get the big packet of information from the counties. Then we have a little business meeting, go to lunch, and come back and try to hear from the legislators. Well, it's hard to get started again. So next year, they're gonna do all that in one. We're gonna have legislators come early, hear their reports from the county.
So they can hear some of the questions and concerns the counties have.
So we know what
And
discussions.
what's going on in counties. I think it'd be good for them to hear that stuff.
And then go right into the reports from the legislators and go to lunch and go home. So I think it's gonna work. I invited Ken Cranbrink and Sexy to come up this year. Cranbrink wrote back and said he couldn't, I didn't hear from Sexy, but we're gonna get him, Sexton, I guess it is, not Sexy, see if we can get him on our program for next year. Because we always hear from the guys up way north. We're the farthest south in that whole district. Be nice to have us represent a little bit too. So that was Charles City. They picked on mental health a little bit. We're all members of Bob Lee, and some of them aren't.
He said it varies from $19, the lowest one, Scott County.
They thought that $35 was crazy, you know, well, it could be $19.
They thought 35 was
No.
high?
Well, no, they're up in that area, it runs from 35 to 37, I think.
In the northern area?
Yeah, but like Scott County down south is paying 19, or assessing 19.
Okay, but then it would be nice to know what region they're in and what are the rest of those counties in that region paying. I mean, that's...
They're all low.
They're all in the
like
low.
a real, like a small area, it's 3-county or 5-county region, I think.
It's a very small, that's why they...
And they don't have very good services either.
Population drop.
That would be the other side.
Yeah.
The big discussion was to get equalization statewide, so everybody pays the same
Yeah.
equity. And nobody argued.
Are those large counties or small ones? Scott?
Large, Scott,
Well, Scott would be large.
Huge population times.
Maybe I got the wrong county, I might have misspoke.
That doesn't sound right.
Because it was down
really
southern
low.
Iowa.
I would say it's probably the...
I might have said the wrong county. It was one of those counties in southern Iowa.
The guy doing all the chipping was a bearded guy with, he complained about everything he walked, but he had good points.
He's not in our region, though. This is, well, he would've...
He would have been in our region.
Mhm.
He was comparing his region to
Jackson.
somebody in a different region.
But you can't go that far out of your region to get comparables, because they're not offering the same kind of service.
Well, that's what the other people said, they're not getting the services for their $19 that they get up here, and he says no, but he just thought it should be more fair, more equitable across the state.
Anyway, it was a good discussion anyway. And we had the ISAC staff there trying to defend what was being done, but the only other thing we heard there from Mitchell County, talking about courthouse security, a lot of people working the same that we are. They said they had a fire drill, they evacuated everybody out of the courthouse in 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Think we cleared the place in 2 minutes and 31 seconds?
I bet you'd be surprised.
Did Mitchell just get a new courthouse built too,
Yes.
didn't they? Yeah.
Did they really?
I guess it depends if you have a court in session, that, you know, depends on what's going on upstairs. If you don't have anything
Yeah,
going on
and also
upstairs.
you say, hey, next Monday we're gonna have a fire drill. It helps too.
True. They know it's coming.
The other thing in the business meeting, we elected a guy by the name of Tim Neal to be chairman next year from, Bremer County. Other than that, it was a pretty uneventful meeting, but really interesting on that. And then Thursday, we went to drainage meeting, you guys have covered that, so. that's all we had.
Friday.
Or Friday.
Yeah, a lot of the speakers were on nitrates.
Yes, yep, we all were.
All right.
A lot lot of the same discussion we had in Fort Dodge, we also had in Charles City, a little different plan on it. Anything else for this morning? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,